Good morning, dads. It's your boy Big Dave back with a live episode of Culture Dad's Age of Sword and Cassette AMA. What's up, Mike? How we doing?
Yeah, good, Dave. I'm stoked for this one, but we are going to have to watch our step a little bit. We usually there's going to be we usually get into some salty language and things like that on the regular podcast, but we are sort of in enemy territory here. But it's going to be great, man. Like, this is awesome. We've got a bunch of really good questions. We've got a bunch of good folks in the chat, so I'm sure we're going to have some good follow-up questions and live questions and super chats and everything. So it should be a really full episode. I'm looking forward to it.
Hell yeah. Excellent. So for you guys that have not tuned into the Culture Dads before, because it is behind a paywall, it's a premium thing. It's something you get along with supporting Imperium Press. And we do a lot of episodes talking about, we started out doing a lot about retro pop culture. We talked about, I think our first episode was, we did an analysis of The Godfather. Then we did one on Western animation. Beautiful old school retro animated films like Fire and Ice and Gandahar and Heavy Metal the movie. And then we did a bunch. We did one on Terminator. We did one on the Mongol movie. We did all kinds of different shows about heavy metal, and we even did one on hip hop and all over the place, all kinds of stuff. We've even done historical stuff as well. We do all kind of stuff here on Culture Dads. And we even had one talking about what it's like to be a father and fatherhood and stuff, more wholesome stuff. So we do, a lot of content that's for the dads, for the Culture Dads out there, folks that are interested in culture creation, that want to look into history, they look into gaming, look into music and all of this kind of stuff. So that's pretty much what we're about here. But
some of my favorite episodes that we've done actually are like the ones that are a little bit off the beaten path, like we did one on pizza, and that was that was one of my favorite episodes, because
I think that was my favorite.
That was so good because we got to talk, obviously about like the food itself, but also how like food and culinary traditions intersect with like folkishness and what it is to be a people and everything like that. Like this is the kind of like weird tangents that we'll go down when we're talking about these things. We did another one that I really thought was great was an episode we did with Whityard on how language influences thought, like how it sort of shapes thought categories or not, and so on and so forth. And that was a really cool episode. So yeah, it's like, it's almost in a way kind of hard to pin down what the podcast is about, because whereas we do a fair number of movie reviews, album reviews, talking about music and art and aesthetics and things like that, it really is a podcast about culture. And that's so wide ranging that, it does lead us into some very unusual territory. Yeah.
It's at face value, it's not like your typical analysis that you find on YouTube. Terminator was made in this year. James Cameron directed it. We do all that. We do all that. But then we get into what is the importance of this film or this genre of music. Why is it mythopoetic? What does it have to do with the Indo-European past, or what does it have to do with us today? What's the metapolitical thing behind it? We really, really do deep dive. So if you're into that kind of stuff, I highly suggest you go check it out. But Mr. Mike, you guys just dropped a new book, didn't you?
Yes, indeed, we did. Yeah, the latest book that we put out is a book called Revolution from the Right. So this is a book that it's part of our studies and reaction series for guys who are familiar with that. Basically, these are like short and punchy books that are written from the loosest possible conception of reactionary standpoint. So like, basically like right wing, we've had guys like Jonathan Bowden, who is sort of like quasi-futurist. We've had, people like Joseph de Maistro, who are like the arch reactionary, like classic reactionaries and things like that, but it's just basically a series of books where we it's basically supposed to be like short and to the point and really, really just excellent works in just right-wing thought. And this book is called Revolution from the Right, and it's quite interesting because it's written by a sociologist named Hans Fryer, who is he was one of the conservative revolutionaries, which is sort of the pre Nazi movement of like right-wing movement in Germany in the early 20th century. And basically he's writing at sort of the height of the Weimar Republic, which is sort of this like proto-shitlib, like German proto-shitlib kind of republic at the early part of the 20th century. And what he's basically saying is that all of the revolutions hitherto have been revolutions from the left, whether that is the English Civil War, the French Revolution, Marxist Revolution, the revolutions of 1848, all revolutions from the left. But the thing is that liberalism and capitalism has been able to neutralize every single one of them because they're all fundamentally based on class. For the most part, they're based on like class distinctions. And as a result, they are good at breaking things down, but they don't really like make any permanent change because you could just basically sort of pay off people who are worried about their like class interests. So that's exactly what it does. And what he sees on the horizon is something else called that he calls revolution from the right. And revolution from the right is basically, it's not based on class interest, it's based on the interests of the folk themselves. And so, you know, he's writing this in 1930. He sees what's coming. He sees what's on the horizon. And he's very much proven right in a lot of his analysis. It's an excellent book. This is one of my favorites of this whole series. And we put out like, you know, this is number 10 in the series. So we put out quite a lot of these, and it's really, really good. So I'm pretty stoked about this. I always order like, you know, a few copies for myself. I ordered like a specific copy that I could just have just on hand with me, like most of the time, just to read. So it's great, man. I really like this one, and it's never been published before. This is the first translation of it that has ever been done in English. So very excited about that.
Very, very cool. Imperium Press digging up relics of history. Very cool. I like that.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, if you want to check out what we got going on, man, we just released The House of the Borderland by William Hope Hodgson. It came out in 1908, one of the first cosmic horror tales. And then coming up, we have our version of The King in Yellow. So that's coming up. If you guys haven't read that, that is a masterpiece from the late 1800s, doing Bizarre Archives 5. And also I have my debut collection of poems, Dave Martell. So that's coming out very, very soon. So lots of great stuff. So let's get right into it, folks. We are going to be reading questions of guys that have left questions in the chats, sent to emails, et cetera, et cetera. We have them compiled. And if you have a question for us, we will read it via super chat. So get your super chats ready. All funds will be going to supporting our publishing efforts. So that's where that's at. So if you're feeling generous, or you want to ask the Culture Dads a question, light it up for us. But you got one already. So let's get started with Mr. Monty Fontaine. Was that 20 pounds or was that 20 euros?
That's 20 pounds.
I always mix up those symbols. So thank you, Mr. Monte. Very, very generous. He says, "Hey chaps, Dave, enjoyed your video on AI and considering it as a tool rather than a replacement for human action. Mike, what are your thoughts on it? Can you see IP publishing and AI-assisted media in the future? Cheers."
That's a good question. AI, I am sort of two minds on it. I actually listened to your stream, Dave, and I very much appreciated it. I do think that AI is, I think of it as a tool, and it's a radical tool. It's going to change so many things, but at the same time, you know, this is going to be sort of like a bit of a prosaic comparison here. But I remember, you know, because I worked in the audio field, like doing like mixing albums and records and things like that. And when auto-tune came in, everyone was like, "Oh, it's going to kill music. It's going to kill performance. It's like everything is just going to be lifeless." And this was even said before my time about things like digital editing, like with Pro Tools and everything like that, where you can snap all of the performances to a grid, and everything is just, the life is going to be sucked out of the performances. And I mean, that did happen to an extent, but there was always a sort of like counter reaction to that, where things like garage rock, basically like the third wave of garage rock, which is not my favorite genre, but I can appreciate where it's coming from, sort of arose in counter reaction to all of that stuff. So it's a tool that can be used. And here's the thing, like you can do like some absolutely crazy stuff with auto-tune to like, make it sound bizarre and weird and everything like that. So there's ways to kind of like creatively misuse it and things, it's a tool. It's ultimately something that's kind of neutral. It's really, the value in it is what the creator makes of it. And with AI, I do think that it's obviously much more radical than something like Pro Tools or whatever. It's going to change a lot of things, but I don't think, well, number one, I absolutely do not believe in the singularity. Like Dave, do you know what I'm talking about when I say that? Like,
sure.
Yeah. I don't believe that that's going to happen. I don't think that that's a thing at all. For a variety of reasons. And ultimately, the reasons why I don't think that the singularity is feasible is that technology is fundamentally dysgenic. It basically, it enables people to like survive. And this is like, I'm not talking about like, modern technology since the Industrial Revolution. I'm talking about, the agricultural revolution. It enables people to survive that would not have otherwise survived, right? It sort of like pushes down the fitness of the human genome, right, in general. So there's a kind of negative feedback loop where technology requires a certain amount of intelligence, requires a certain amount of wherewithal and ability to maintain it, but also sort of like pushes down that ability to maintain it, just because it is dysgenic, and it makes people dumber through like counter selection. AI is going to be absolutely no different than any of that stuff. Basically, like with the agricultural revolution, what arose basically to mitigate the dysgenic effect of farming was social technology. Fundamentally, it was things like the state and social organization had to become more and more complicated. There's actually a fascinating paper that was written by a guy named, I think it's Richard Crabtree. Crabtree is his last name, and it's called Our Fragile Intellect, where he basically argues that intelligence has been declining since the late Mesolithic, for the reasons that I've just basically said. So basically, AI is a quantum leap in technology. Technology makes us dumber by making life easier. So you get that sort of effect of like good times make for weak men make for, and so on and so forth. I think AI is going to be exactly the same. It is going to change a lot of things, just like the way that the Industrial Revolution did. But it's not going to be a quantum leap that's like, absolutely unprecedented, I guess I would say. As far as Imperium using it, I could see us using AI. Certainly, there's applications for it. Take for example something like translation, machine translation, right? Now, none of the books that we have put out are machine translated, but machine translation is useful to do things like kind of double check something, or like get something sort of like get a block of text kind of like roughed into positions, so to speak. And then you do like the real like human translation with it kind of thing. So, I mean, it's used, we do use it as like a sort of supplementary thing, but I don't see, like, certainly we wouldn't go all the way with that. And part of like one of the things that Imperium Press is for, really, is to support the broader nationalist community, right? And if we don't pay guys to do things, if we don't pay guys to make artwork, if we don't pay guys to translate and this and that and everything, then it's not doing what it's supposed to do, which is kind of like act as a pillar to support the broader scene. So there's kind of a limit to how we would use AI. Hopefully that serves as a good answer to that question.
Yeah, very good answer. We have Sunshine Kid for 10 euros. Dave, for those of us who have an e-reader but not a Kindle, any chance Bizarchive's ebooks will be available for sale as regular EPUBs in the future? You know what? If you go sign up to the Obelisk, which is our Substack, I send out free ebooks every single month. I have been sending them out in Kindle format. Nobody has come to me with requests for them to be standard EPUB, but I could most certainly put them in standard EPUB format for somebody that wanted to, and I could most certainly put them for sale on the website as EPUB. I have them all in EPUB. It's just nobody's asked me. It seems that everybody either has a Kindle or has a Kindle compatible device. I don't know. I don't use e-readers. I should probably get one so I could become more familiar with them. But yeah, I could definitely make that happen. And if you want to reach out to me personally and on Telegram or something like that, and we want to work something out, I could send you some. Hit me up. Let's work something out. So let's do we have any oh yeah, we got another one. Hang on. 1999 for my buddy Zimzilla. With the writers guild strike and the public displeasure with modern writing, do you believe that if the WGA gets what they want and people are still not happy with the output, it could cause a greater exodus from Hollywood? What do you think about that, Mike? You think anything?
I am not familiar with this. What's going on with this writers guild strike?
So
what's that all about?
The Writers Guild, who are a union of writers in Hollywood, and it's not just them, actually. It's not just them. It is they're the only ones officially on strike, but there's been open letters written by stage people, like pretty much most like a lot of people that contribute to the operation, the nuts and bolts of movie creation. Are now like post-production guys that do post-production, et cetera, a bunch of people. But Writers Guild are the biggest one, and they're the ones that are officially striking over it. They have gone to the big Hollywood studios and said, hey, we want you guys to guarantee that you will not use AI, that you guys will not use AI and replace us. And the big Hollywood studios said no, because big Hollywood studios are already using AI, and they have dumped. This is speculation on my part, but given the trends that are happening, for example, the Unity, the game development software has like laid off like 2,000 people because they're replacing them with AI. Hollywood has most certainly already put millions of dollars into the development of proprietary AI software. So there's no way they're not already planning on using it. So what they did was the studio said no. They're like, okay, well, we're going on strike. So they went on strike. They've gone on strike before, but what is the question again? So if it's what they want and people are still not happy with the output, it could cause a greater exodus from Hollywood. Depends who you saying is exodusing. Are the writers exodusing, or do you mean viewers, like audience Because the audience, there's been an audience exodus from Hollywood movies. Hollywood is collapsing. They can't fill movie theaters. They can't sell. That's why they're going to doing these movies right to stream. It's literally because they can't can't afford, and two, don't want to lose money on sending them out for showings. For distribution of film, even today, without DVDs and VHSs or whatever, even today, just to ship a film and get it out onto screens is expensive, right? You got to deal with rights. You got to pay this. You got to pay that. You got to pay these taxes. You got to do shit, right? Even though it is completely digital now. Those days of the film reel up in the big projection room when you go to the theater. Those days are over. They don't have reels anymore. I mean, they do. The older theaters that are still running still have reels, and they'll still run reels, but it's almost all digital now. If you go to a theater chain that has opened up over the past, I don't know, 10 years or whatever, they don't even, if you call a theater and you ask them, like, hey, how do you load up your movies? You talk to the manager, they will have no idea. I was doing this because I have some friends that are making films, and I was like, hey, is there any way that we could get one of our short films as a bumper into your guys' movies? And I over and over and over again, I talked to some awful, right? Some Brittany or Jessica, and she's like, I don't know. It's just all digital. It's just all online. I don't know. It just gets loaded up. She has no fucking idea how the thing works, what goes on with it. And one girl actually told me if they roll an old movie and they have to use one of the reels, they have to call a specialist. They don't even know how to run the projectors That's anymore. Funny. So coming back to the topic, yeah, it's what's going on is Hollywood is not doing good. They send these movies straight to stream. It goes to HBO Max or whatever. Paramount Plus, because they don't want to lose the money because they are doing bad. Here's the thing, everybody's like, well, it doesn't matter. You go woke, and go woke, go broke is mostly bullshit. Sometimes it works, like with the Bud Light thing. Sometimes it works, but these brands are dying. Were dying beforehand. The go woke thing was just a Hail Mary for them. Right, they're just Hail Marying and hoping that this works. Nobody was buying Bud Light to begin with because it's a nasty, shitty beer, and people have grown out of it. And a lot of the people that would binge drink this kind of crap are just regular schmoes. They have either died off or they're Joe schmoes that don't like that kind of stuff, and so they stop buying it. So they really miscalculated. They screwed up, but they were dying anyways. But it's still, go woke, go broke is sometimes still true once in a while. But a lot of guys spurg out and they say, it's rightfully so, because it is quite the monstrous operation, ESG, which Mr. Mike, you guys have put out a tremendous video on ESG and BlackRock, et cetera, et cetera. BlackRock can just literally just print money. They have this algorithm called Aladdin. It is an automated investment algorithm, and it just makes money. They don't even need humans to do it. So they have tons and tons of money. However, they don't have all the money. And with everybody that they're propping up, there are not enough ESG welfare bank bucks for them to prop up everything that is failing. There's just not enough money. All the money in the world wouldn't be enough to prop it all up. So Hollywood, it's going to limp on. It's going to still be, even after it kind of collapses, it's going to be a carcass. It's just we're still going to hear about Hollywood 50 years from now. It's still going to be there, but it's going to be completely replaced by something else. The final blow to it will be the ability of very small studios you're going to have in like 10 years, you're going to have like genius autistic kids with too much time on their hands making brilliant films all by themselves. So Hollywood is cooked.
This is part of the reason why learning how to wield AI intelligently is important, because you can use things like this to make movies on a budget that is realistic, kind of thing, or realistic for smaller studios and everything. Like I don't really know anything about the technical aspect of filmmaking, but you have to understand sort of like how culture creation happens, right? Like basically, you get sort of like these, it's very analogous to something like, say, the collapse of the Roman Empire, right? Where you get this cultural center that is kind of dilapidated and sort of fallen in on itself, and it's not like what it once was, and it's limping along, and it's lacking vitality, and all the vitality sort of comes from the periphery. It comes from the barbarian hinterlands, right? Like, and we're talking sort of metaphorically here. about independent content creators, people like in the dissident right, that are doing cutting edge, like, thinking in terms of like worldviews and everything like that. This is where all the like creative vitality is coming from. It's coming from underground. It's coming from places that don't get a lot of sunlight, so to speak. These are the things that actually, upstream are far upstream of like Hollywood. So like a lot of what Hollywood is putting out now is, well, I mean, a lot of what it's doing is sort of rehashing old stuff that was kind of underground in like the 50s and 60s, right? You think of like Marvel cape shit and things like that. But like even in terms of like movies and like horror movies and things like that, you see a lot of stuff that was like sort of like indie or low budget stuff, like a lot of the techniques that were pioneered in things like the Blair Witch Project or whatever, like in like maybe 20 or 30 years ago. This is starting to sort of like, it's filtered down into the mainstream. So, and that's still going on. It's just that like what's happening in the underground right now has turned into something that is actually genuinely, in some cases anyway, subversive to the structure of the system. But in general, like most people, like Joe Schmo, who takes the 99B line to work every day, is pretty happy with what Netflix is offering. I mean, it's not amazing. It's far from amazing. It's I don't know. I never watch TV. I never watch Netflix. I find it super boring. But most people are pretty happy with that, right? Like, so I think Hollywood and Netflix and things like that, they will continue to go along for a while. They're certainly not making as much money as they once did. COVID has really screwed all that up with the lockdowns, and everything have basically made it so that it, like, the theater industry hasn't really recovered since then. But you also have to like think that these things are, like Hollywood specifically, is a pillar of the state apparatus. So, and the state is the real thing that's like has the deepest of deep pockets that can keep pumping money into it. Because basically what Hollywood is, and what, as Dave said, in 50 years it's still going to be around. It's going to be kind of a shell of what it once was. But what Hollywood fundamentally is it's sort of like the Pravda of the 2020s, right? It's like the propaganda newspaper of the modern era. It just basically reinforces narratives that the regime likes and that continue to keep itself propped up and everything like that. Like, Hollywood is not there to be profitable. It doesn't have to be profitable. That's kind of not the point. Of course, if it is, it just makes it that much more powerful. And the fact that it's losing profitability because it's so shitty at what it does is evidence that we're winning. But yeah, so there's a long ways to go. Basically, it's really good to see that the thing is starting to tank, but there's some pretty deep pockets behind it. So there's a long way to go, basically.
Yeah, it's a long way to go, but it's sick, right? The animal is sick. It has been separated from the herd. And here's the thing with anything, right? Regimes always co-opt that which is hip and cool and glitz and glam. Always. But the moment that art form or that group of artists or that industry or that whatever that is, that mechanism that creates that art, the moment that gets co-opted by a regime, it loses its vitality. And the moment that it loses its vitality, it is now living on borrowed time. So what Mike just said with the guy on the B line, and this is what I would disagree with a little bit. The guy on the B line, dude, Netflix is losing views too. Netflix is absolutely losing. They're laying people off. They're cutting things. They're shutting down. They're turning away things. Disney's doing the same thing. They're not as robust as they were some years back. They're in some trouble financially, operationally. The views on movies and shows that they're coming out with, people just don't like it. And here's the thing is with Joe Schmo Blow on the B line every morning is that he can't really articulate why he doesn't like that weird Velma show. He can't articulate why he's not going to watch the new Last Kingdom movie spinoff that's completely pause and woke. He can't articulate that. He just knows, he's like, oh, I just didn't like that. It just sucked. So he just doesn't watch it. A lot of people still do watch it, but yay.
No, it's good, man. Like, normal people are like a really good barometer for things kind of in general, because I mean, most people have been absolutely destroyed by progressivism and wokeness and everything. Like, their instincts have kind of been turned back against themselves, but the instincts are still there, and they're so deep rooted that it's kind of hard to unroot them. And for the most part, I mean, I think like normal people, especially like working class people in particular, have like fairly healthy instincts in general. Like, they might, be addicted to drugs. They might have personal problems. Their relationships might not be always the best or whatever. But for the most part, at a very low resolution level, they kind of like approximate what is the truth. It's like that meme, that bell curve meme, right? Like the grug guy at the bottom approximates the like 160 IQ guy at the top, and it's the guy in the middle that like disagrees with reality.
Yeah.
So it's very encouraging to see that normal people, and especially like working class people, are turning away from this stuff and are turning off away from it. It's good, not just because it's good for them, but it's good because it means the enemy's making mistakes.
Mm-hmm. We got one more super chat, and then we're gonna do this. We're already over half an hour in, so we're gonna take this super chat. We're gonna go to the written questions, but you guys can keep sending them. We'll hit them all, I promise. So I'll take my stand for $10. Thank you. Take my stand. Says there's plenty to be frustrated about with the right, but what are the current tendencies on the right that make you optimistic?
That's a good question, actually. I would say, like, I think what's happening sort of broadly in the scene is that actually I'm sensing a bit of a frustration in the scene. And this is good, actually. This is a good thing. There's a frustration with the need for hot takes, the superficiality of like commenting on the news of the day. There's a desire for something deeper. There's a desire for a more like deep-rooted engagement with like broader historical trends. And this is something that I try to write about on the Imperium Press Substack. Sometimes, rarely, I'll comment on some stuff that's in the news or whatever, but I like to sort of try and zoom out and take the like wide angle lens view, as wide as I could possibly get. Like, maybe zooming out past even the last 2,000 years or so, and see and what are the trends, what are the very long-term trends that are sort of moving in what direction, everything. There's an appetite for that, I think. And while there are content creators out there that are sort of like their bread and butter is commenting on the news and the sort of ephemeral babble of politics and everything like that, I think that attention is starting to shift towards like more fundamental issues of building a worldview. What is it that we actually believe? And it seems to me like what we currently call the dissident right, I mean, everybody, I guess, knows this, is more than one worldview. It's more than one movement. It's sort of like a loose conglomeration of movements. But what you're seeing now is, I believe, and of course this is going to be a little controversial, I believe that universalism is basically totally incompatible with the right, and that you're seeing a kind of backlash against it. I've noticed this. I'm on Twitter, sort of incognito, not as Imperium Press or whatever. And so I kind of like can see things more from like the ground level. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like, I really am starting to see people sort of push back against the idea that we have to, the rules have to be the same for every person, every moral agent has to play by the same rules, that, what's good for the goose is in fact good for the gander. I think that this is totally incompatible with the right, and people are starting to push back against that in our thing. This is something that's kind of new. You didn't really see anything like that in like 2015, 2016, 2020, or starting in kind of about 2020, I would say, but it's really starting to move now. And I think that's a very, very good trend. Also, I think, not to sort of, toot our own horn with Imperium Press, we are one of many, many others. I think that the idea that the right is professionalizing and creating businesses and creating like actual institutions that have a budget and that are able to undertake projects and to plan for the future. This kind of thing is really, really good. This is sort of broadly what needs to happen. The right needs to professionalize, needs to move away from hot takes. It needs to move away from, endless debate, as I've said, perhaps endlessly. It needs to move towards like praxis, doing shit in real life, even though we're still, the nationalist movement is very much online. We need to move towards actual practical things. And this is starting to happen. It's starting to happen you can see this constellation of like right-wing businesses that are coming out. That is a super, super good trend. It's a reason for a lot of hope in the future. Another thing is I think people are just sick of getting black-pilled and are really looking for genuine solutions. They're looking for genuine insight, and they're looking for hope. And there's lots of reason to hope. This is, something that I'm hoping that people can sort of grab onto a little bit more going forward, because, man, we are going to win. Like in a century, things are going to look vastly different than they are now. And I think people are starting to, in their gut, understand that. And I think part of that is because, the powers that be are starting to lose their grip. They lose their grip on reality. They're starting to become hysterical and make stupid mistakes. Yes, there's a lot of reason for hope, and I think guys are starting to get a little bit more hopeful. It's starting to turn around, even though there's still a lot of blackpilling.
Yeah, and also, what I'm kind of optimistic about, first of all, a lot of us, not just professional, are normalizing, right? It's like, for example, I had people reach out to me in like real life, or they're like, so everybody that I know in real life knows who I am and what I do. They know where I stand on things. And I've had them ask before they buy Biz Archives books, they say, is this going to be just like propaganda? And I'm like, no. This is just stories. This is just art. And they went on Reddit and they loved it, right? Because people are just tired of propaganda. People want entertainment. And when we normalize and we just become, and there is a place for propaganda. There's a place for, like, especially what Mike does. There's a place for everything, but that can't be all that we do. And one of the problems that's going on is that everybody was doing that. Everybody, we're still kind of stuck in the shadow of the Trump election, right? Where everybody wants to make, and I do this too, right? We make digital content, but a lot of the digital content is stuck in that cycle of. Look, it's like you can get this article from mainstream media that blackpills you, and then you have to watch your favorite content creator bring it up and be like, look how shitty this is. Doesn't this suck? Oh my God. And that's just crusty. It's stale. And then unfortunately, and all these people, I'm not pointing fingers, naming names or anything like that. This is a critique of us, right? So, a lot of times these people are doing this and they're saying, well, how come my subscriptions are dying? How come I'm not making any more money? How come that blah, 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 blah? This because people don't want to see that no more. People are tired of that. There's a huge amount of us that are like, okay, this is going to take a long time. We just live here now. We just need to normalize and just go about our lives and just be who we are. You know what I mean? And this is why I say with art, if you're this goes to like anybody. You could be a complete leftoid, leftist, rightist, whatever you are. If you're a right winger and you want to make art, don't aim to make right wing art. Just be a right winger that makes good art, and your worldview will be organically transposed into that creation, whether you know it or not, or like it or not, or are completely conscious of it. You might be like, I'm not putting anything of mine in here. When people read it, that gets transmitted kind of like it's like a magic spell. It's something that's completely in the ether, and it gets transmitted. And you don't even know it. So people are. What I'm optimistic about is that there is a push to normalize, and I don't mean like become blue pilled normies that just watch Netflix or whatever. But what I mean is we're just chilling out a little bit. This idea of we have to be this giant spectacle. We have to act like a circus and get all the cameras on us and get ourselves in. People are like, okay, now it's time to build businesses. It's time to build wealth. It's time to create beautiful, cool things. It's time to actually start considering that we're going to be here in this for the long run. This idea of the machine is going to collapse tomorrow or whatever. That is a fantasy. It's not going to happen like that. This is a long, slow thing that's going to happen, and we just got to chill and build and just be cool. And here's the deal: is that we have a lot of talented, cool people in our thing. We're going to get guys that come out there and like really, really do their thing, and folks are going to like it. And I'm very hopeful and optimistic because the quality and the amount of cool stuff that I'm seeing come out, right? So many cool books and paintings and music and historical literature and philosophy and big brain stuff. It's like elevated stuff across. It's professionalizing. It's becoming elevated. It's next tier, and that is like where we need to go, in my opinion. And that is happening. And I'm very proud of everybody that's involved with that. And, I'm very hopeful. I am nothing but white pills. There's no way the machine is, first of all, they're wrong about everything. Secondly, their intention behind everything is rotten. They're losing money. They're losing power. They're losing people's attention, and rightfully so, because they're the bad guys. They're the bad guys. The bad guys are losing. It's just the way things are. It takes a long time for bad guys to lose. This thing that the idea that it's gonna be like 9/11 and the tower is gonna collapse in 9.8 seconds in our lifetime is just a fantasy. We have to understand that we just live here now.
Yeah, like the Culture Dads podcast is we dole out a lot of white pills, and it's not cope either. It's like they're genuine reasons to be hopeful for the future. This question, we could do a whole episode on that, but I'll just say one last thing to sort of like echo what Dave was saying is that one of the things that it gives reason for hope is that guys are starting to realize that we're not going to win tomorrow. It's not going to be like, we're not going to storm the Capitol. We're not going to, there's not going to be a coup and it's just like, that's the end of it or whatever, in Minecraft. It's going to be a long slog, right? It's going to be centuries perhaps before the thing turns around. Like we didn't get into this situation in 2 generations, and we're not going to get out of it in 2 generations. It's going to take a lot longer than that. And what gives me hope is that people are starting to realize that, and they're starting to be intergenerational thinking. They're starting to be thought of where are we going? How are we going to build these institutions? How are we going to solve the succession problem? How are we going to like make sure that they get handed over to people who have the same interests and the same goals in the future? And we're getting away from these sort of like, all we need to do is like Zergrosh Elon on Twitter and, he'll solve the problem or whatever, right? Like all of this stuff is really good that we're getting attention and everything, but it's going to be a long haul, and people are starting to come to terms with that. And I think that that's a really good development.
Yeah, we're gonna have to start, Mo. We have a lot of questions. We'll be here. I think this is gonna be a long one, and that's okay. We'll answer all your questions. If you got a question, you're listening to the chat, send us a super chat. We're gonna come back around to the super chats, but we got to get to some of these that were previously asked. We're coming up on an hour, so we're gonna try to answer these with as much brevity as possible. So the first one is Mr. Mike or whoever, this is for both of us, from our boy Frostcast, says, should content creators have a 10-year plan?
Well, it's interesting that we just got done answering the question that we did, because I think that the answer has to be yes, or at least serious content creators have to have some sort of plan. Certainly with Imperium Press, we plan out our release schedule. It's not like I plan out every single one of my tweets or Telegram posts or whatever, but we certainly have a, let's just say, a short term, a medium term, long term, and a very long term to-do list. We have a lot of things, a lot of projects that we're working on. When the project started, when Imperium Press started back in 2019, which, when I say it, it doesn't sound all that long ago. It's only about 3.5 years now. When we started it, it just kind of like got going right out of the gate in a way that was a little bit unexpected, and we kind of took hold of that and started to get all these ambitions to do this and that project. Many of them, I mean, all the important ones are still going. Like, say, for example, one of the things that we started working on in like 2020, like with less than a year into the company, is this project called the Syllabus, basically, which is a series of curated reading lists that will get guys up to speed. They'll basically be sort of like a, it'll be sort of like a little crash course, or just like a course in, different topics. So something like metaphysics, or, the American Civil War, or, linguistics, or like take any topic that's of interest to like people in our sphere. What we're doing with the Syllabus is basically creating a set of comprehensive reading lists to educate you on that topic, but educate you in a way that's not going to like lead you into like liberal nonsense cul-de-sacs that you can't ever emerge from, which is exactly what you're going to get when you go to university. So that's a project. It's a very large project. We've had a lot of help on it. We need a lot of help on it. So anybody who's interested, get in touch. But that's a project that we've been working on. That's a very, very long-term project. That is like a 10-year plan kind of thing, right? I'm sure it will launch before 10 years is up. But, it's the kind of thing that'll be revised, and it'll go through, editions and things like that. So, that's part of, that would be like an example of one aspect of a 10-year plan. I think any serious content creator has to think at least a year in advance, and ideally have something like a 5-year plan or whatever. Otherwise, you get sort of embroiled in what one of the guys in the Imperium chat on Telegram recently called the audience capture trap, which is that basically like people who grow very quickly and gain an audience for like, of one viral video, or, a just very limited number of takes, or a very, very constrained worldview, they tend to get pigeonholed into that worldview, into that like series of takes, and they can never really escape from it. And they just have to keep doubling down. They have to keep making it more radical and more insane. They have to, it just gets crazy, and it runs off the rails, and tends to be a very poor heuristic for truth tracking, right? Is trying to appeal to your initial audience.
Or it becomes very like milquetoast and repetitive and stale, right?
Yeah, it can go in like one of two directions kind of thing, right? Depending on what it was, where it started. But one of the things that a good content creator can do and will do is challenge their audience a little bit here and there. Like, you don't want to like build your audience on, a like one particular topic or take or whatever, and then just completely do a 180. That's not really going to work. But at the same time, you kind of have to be a little bit self-critical. You have to, I mean, if you're honest, like that's the thing, is that people appreciate honesty. They gravitate towards people who they know are going to tell them the truth. And if people tell you what you want to hear over and over again, like individuals who are like tuning in will eventually tune out from that. I mean, you may get this like audience churn where you get like new people kind of coming in or whatever. But if you get trapped in this like audience capture trap, as it was put, that can really, I mean, you'll get big quickly, and then you'll be forgotten. within like 5 years or 10 years or something like that. So having a plan sort of keeps you focused. It gives you the sort of like a North Star to like look towards, like a goal that you're going towards, that like no amount of like hot takes and like spurgs in the comments are going to derail you from. So yeah, having a 10-year plan is a good idea.
Yeah, absolutely. Content creation is just like anything else. You can't just go into something thinking, "Oh, well, I'm just gonna do the thing that I'm doing, and then money's gonna come or success is gonna come." That's not how it works. And here's the deal: I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna push back on some people, but the idea that people should just like do things for free forever is a terrible idea. And if you're somebody that like, oh, I'm just gonna do this for free forever, blah blah blah, you're a chump. You're a chump. That is literally, it's just like self-aggrandizing. You're just jerking yourself off. It's virtue signaling. It's not no serious man that has responsibilities, that has a family, is going to want to waste his time doing something for free forever. It has to have returns. And by returns, I mean it needs to feed your kids. It needs to push you forward in life, and it needs to gain wealth. If it doesn't, it's a waste of time. Now, there are things that's like, I love doing this, and it makes a little bit of money and justifies me doing it. That's perfectly cool. But you got to make something. It can't be nothing. That's a bad idea. It's a bad investment. And that's just the way that it is. So there are a lot of content creators in the height of that were like going into it in the height of the YouTube era, where you kind of could do this. They would just go, well, I'm just going to make content and then I'll just make money later. No, before you even make a video, you have to figure out how you're going to make money. And what Mr. Mike is describing here with these meteoric rises, I call these guys Peter Pans. They come onto the scene, they rise to great prominence, and then they either crash and burn or whatever, and their descent is always catastrophic and embarrassing, or they just completely vanish because their audience doesn't care about them. They are, if you build your audience just based on like getting the most views and getting the most people, this like audience capture, you don't have a good audience. They don't care about you, right? So the moment that you say anything that's against what they like or whatever, they don't view you as a human being. Right, they view you as a dancing monkey to like give them an endorphin rush. My audience, like I can go to my audience like I just did with that AI video. I completely turned my opinion on it and proposed it to them, and they were like really receptive. Obviously, a lot of them disagreed with me, but they were very receptive because my audience are people that have gotten to know me. And also, here's another thing: if you build a really big audience, those people, that's not how business works. People, there's first there's brand awareness, and then there's trust, and then there is transactions. You can't sell something to people that they don't know you, they don't trust you. They have to trust you first. That's why, the Bog Lords and the Bizarre Kangs out there support us. Like, we're a small operation. We're a very small contingency, but we punch way above our weight as far as supporting each other financially and as far as building this thing, because we trust each other and we know each other, right? So it's a completely different animal. That's why the Bizarre Archives, despite having 1,000 subs here, 2,000 there's like maybe 10,000 subs all day across all platforms between me and the Bizarre Archives. We can literally create this like little machine here. So this idea of let's just make it get as big as possible, as quickly as possible, and all that, it's just a terrible plan. It's a terrible plan. It's retarded, and it doesn't work. It doesn't work in anything. You can't go into welding. You can't go into acting. You can't go into coding. You can't go into just whatever. Like, make something up. You can't go into it with that mentality. So let's move on here. Frost Guys has one more. Sperm donation. Would our ancestors have done it?
Good question. Maybe after the conquest, they would have done the direct deposit, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question. There are different like prehistorical layers that are built into our traditions, right? And like this goes to the the question of, you know, polygamy versus monogamy. And obviously, like, guys in our scene have a take on this, and it's a good take, right? Like it's the opposite take of like a Andrew Tate or something like that. But definitely there are different layers built into our prehistory, right? Our genetic history tells us that we had polygamy for a very, very long time. Now, polygamy is eugenic at the organism level. In some sense, you could think of it as a kind of meritocracy in sexual selection, right? To the Chad go the spoils, right? But monogamy has its own virtues as well. And of course, our traditions, whether those be Christian traditions or Indo-European traditions or what have you, basically any tradition that exists today, or has existed in the last like 4,000 or 5,000 years, is completely based on monogamy. And it has been for a long time, because monogamy is adaptive at the group level, right? Like like without exception, every single empire, every single civilization, every group of people that built a structure that's more than one story tall has been built on beta male surplus energy, right? It's been based on sharing with the group all of the spoils, and that includes, you know, mates. No society. So monogamy is adaptive at the group level, and so you've got this tension between like the polygamy and the monogamy. No society can afford either of these things indefinitely, and it seems to me very likely that it goes in cycles, right? Like you probably saw quite a bit of polygamy back in the migration era after Rome had collapsed, when things were chaotic and everything like that. As things kind of, you know, come into focus, as civilization sort of starts to get its footing again, monogamy comes back. So they go back and forth. So it's a hard question to answer. Would our ancient ancestors have done sperm donation? It depends which ancestor, like how far back. I think that if this is like not just a joke question, if we're seriously trying to answer it, I think that certain of our ancestors, especially the ones that engaged in the domestic cult, would have found that absolutely grotesque. And they would have regarded the issue of the offspring of such a union as totally illegitimate. But other of our ancestors would have seen it somewhat differently. So this really goes to the point, like which ancestor, how far back, when, kind of goes to the point of whether traditions are in fact something dynamic and can change, or they're something that are eternal and changeless. And that is actually a much deeper question that's kind of like hidden below the surface of that question.
Yeah. So in Germanic society, in order for a child to be regarded as your child or as part of the family, the father had to name him. They had to go through a process, and the moment that him being related was not enough. Him being blood related was not enough, right? There's this idea of nowadays we kind of associate everything with genetics, everything with XYZ. Our ancestors didn't necessarily view it that way all the time, right? There was obviously this person looks like me was an important thing, but in order for you to be accepted, you had to be named by your father, and at that point you were accepted into the family, and then you were considered part of the familial line.
And this exists in every one of the other Indo-European branches too.
Yeah, exactly. So like in ancient society, if a father said, "This is not my child," and then went and like adopted a kid and said, "This is my child," the adopted kid would be viewed as more of the clan than the rejected one. It's just the way that it is. This was like the ultimate power of the patriarch, is that he could unfamily you. He could like his power was greater than genes, right? So our ancestor, in my view, now Mike's right. You could go back, maybe some wild step man on a chariot would have like just like sent it out, direct deposit. maybe he would have done that. But as far as Iron and Bronze Age, Germanic peoples and Roman peoples and people from those eras and those societies, no, it would have been seen as pretty bizarre. So let's keep,
and these people would have, like, the legitimate offspring had to be part of like a conjugal union too. You had to be married. There was all sorts of, like, these people were extreme formalists. Everything had to be just so. The the spirit of the law meant nothing. Everything was the letter of the law. It had to be done this way. So yeah, I think most of the ancestors that I think people have in mind when they ask about stuff like this would have said no to that question.
Yeah. All right, let's knock out a few super chats and we'll go back to the list. Solar Temple, my buddy Solar Temple, thank you so much for your generosity. $20. Says, Mike, any plans for another addition to the Western Canon series in the near future? I appreciate the work both you do. Hail the dads. Hail to you, Solar Temple. Thank you so much.
Thank you very, very much, Solar Temple. That is very generous. Thank you. Yes, we actually have a Western Canon book that's going to be coming out fairly soon, like within the next couple of months. It's going to be a doozy. I mean, they all are. Here's the thing. The Western Canon series is by far the hardest one for us to put out, especially because a lot of it involves poetry. Here's like guys, kind of, because publishing is a little bit of an opaque process. We actually did a Culture Dads episode on like what goes into being a publisher, that was another favorite episode. But the Western Canon ones are hard because it's poetry and it's lineated poetry where it's got line numbers and things like that. And for us to put out an ebook that maintains those line numbers, but like, believe me, it takes weeks and weeks of effort to make that happen. Just that little thing. And then you've also got the indexes and the bibliographies. Putting out these books takes a lot of work. So we appreciate everyone's support that'll let us do that. But the Western Canon is the hardest one by far. The first one that we put out was actually the first book, which was that we ever released, which was Iliad. I thought that was going to be way easier than it was, and then I just got my ass handed to me. The second book in the Western Canon series was Beowulf, and this is the one where we really got very serious about trying to make sure that the EPUB, like all the line numbers lined up and all of that stuff. And that one book basically derailed that year of worth of releases. It took so long. I had no idea. So yeah, these are hard books to put out. They take a lot of extra work. And the next one is going to be, again, very, very close to the center of the Western Canon. I think I'll hold off on saying like who it is, which writer it is, but it's definitely a much less ancient writer than what we've done so far. It's a writer that has a name, shall we say, a name that isn't something like Homer. So, yes, that is coming in the next few months, and we are going to do. Well, I'll name this one. We're going to do the Odyssey. That's going to come later on this year as the companion to, of course, the Iliad that we've done. We've got a really cool introduction that's been written up by somebody for that. I'm very, very excited about it. And yes, this series continues on. It's really one of the central things that we do. So lots to look forward to. There's going to be at least two books this year in that series. And boy, we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I wish I could talk about it all, but I don't want to give everything away in one shot.
Yeah. John Smith, $9.99. Thank you so much, Mr. John Smith. Very generous. $10. Says, this has probably been asked elsewhere before, but what was y'all's favorite book to publish? Hard mode, not the first one. Don't worry, that's not hard mode. My first one was my least favorite. So, Mr. Mike, if you want to go first.
No, why don't you go first? I was just waxing for a long time on books, so you can go ahead.
My favorite one so far has been Bizarre Archives 4. I think that is our best one so far. I really, really love the stories that are in it. That was one that I kind of hit my stride. I started, so here with the Bizarre Archives, I started out when we first started. I had a bunch of guys that were helping out with layout and everything, and they were very, very generous with their time, and they're great. And I have zero criticisms of them or the quality of their work. However, it is like it was inefficient for me, right? You have to ask this guy, and then this guy over here says I can't do it for free this time. I need this amount of money, and then you're like, oh, this other guy can't find out I'm paying this guy because I don't have enough money for both of these guys, and it's just like a back and forth. I would love to just pay everybody all the time and have them all work, et cetera. But unfortunately, when you're only selling in the beginning, when I was only selling like a few hundred books, in my here or there, that's just not enough money, right? I just couldn't justify doing that. So I taught myself how to do layout. I taught myself how to do cover layout. I just taught myself how to do everything. And I just started doing it myself. And at first it was a little rough. It wasn't as good. And then Bizarre Archives 4, I started to really understand my software. I was a lot more efficient with it, and it came out and it looked a lot nicer. And then now the book's coming out. If you buy House on the Borderlands, if you buy Masters of Horror Volume 2, you will see that the cover design, I did those covers all myself. Those covers look way better. I have little decorations on them and this stuff. I figured out how to do certain alignments and everything like that. And these books just they look way more professional than they did before. So my favorite books, my favorite is probably Bizarre Archives 4, and then probably Masters of Horror Volume 2. I love that book. I think that looks beautiful. I really like House of the Borderlands. Looks very nice. So I love all my books. I love all my children, but they get better and better as time goes on.
Yeah, that's very true. It's kind of like your children. And I've heard people say this, like musicians say this about the albums that they put out. It's like each one is special in its own way. It's like, hard to pick a favorite one because it's like picking a favorite child. For Imperium Press, like I'm always really hot on the last thing that we put out. Even though, like, in a lot of cases, it's like I'm kind of sick of it by the time it's come out because I've read it lots of times and there's so much that goes into the formatting and everything like that. But I would say it's a toss-up, really. The favorite one is a toss-up between The Ancient City and Folktales in the Indo-European Tradition. Because The Ancient City was so important for my own personal development. I really do feel like that was the one where we hit our stride in terms of visual like effects. I think that I like all the cover designs, but that was the one I was really happy with at the time. A lot of work went into that book. There's a lot of translation in there. I mean, for a book that's written in English, none of the Latin or Greek was translated. Because, people in the 19th century were actually literate and we were expected just to be able to read that shit if you were, just an educated layman. So we had to translate all that and it took a long time. And we put together, of course, the indexes are always the bugbear of Imperium Press books. It takes me like days to put together an index. And sometimes I wonder if anybody even uses it. So that one took a long time. But it was worth it. And the bibliography, I think the bibliography in that book is worth it for that alone is worth the purchase because, all the bibliographies that we put out, we don't just sort of slap together a bunch of stuff where it's like, oh, this is like what the Wikipedia says, see also, read this on this book. No. The bibliographies for every single one of our books are geared towards people who are in our sphere, in the nationalist sphere, that believe and value the things that we believe and value. It's designed to lead you in the right direction, to get you to actually understand the book in the way that you're supposed to. In a lot of cases, it involves recommending secondary literature on these authors that is a little bit off the beaten path. So that one is definitely the case with the Coulange book, the Ancient City. Folktales in the Indo-European tradition is also special to me because it was kind of the impetus for the publishing company in the first place. I've told this story before. Basically, that the book started out as a gift for my children, and it just grew and grew and grew and grew and grew until it became this monster that was like threatening to swallow up every folktale in existence. And then the stroke of luck came for me to, happen upon the study that integrated all these folktales into like the sweep of like ancient Indo-European tradition. So that sort of came together very serendipitously. And of course, I wrote the introduction. That introduction was based on years and years of reading folk tales and taking notes and making connections and things like that. And I really do think that in that introduction that there have been some strides made forward in terms of actual like academic folkloristics. Like there are some discoveries that have been made that I really would like to see like academics latch on to, like in terms of the how ancient some of these folk tales really are, and how ancient some of our the stuff like the Poetic Edda actually is. Jackson Crawford, I know you're a big Culture Dads guy, so you got to latch on to this. So anyway, that one is very special to me. I'd say, man, it's hard to pick. I would say as a toss-up, I would probably go with Folktales, because that is a book where, like, if you could give only one book to someone and be like, this is the one book that you should read, probably it's going to be that one. I don't know. You've got the Poetic Edda, you've got the Iliad, you've got Ancient City. Folktales is probably my favorite that we've done.
Yeah, there's a reason that Mike's books are $20, $30 and mine are like $10, $15. His books are like, don't get me wrong. I have put a lot of work into books. Dude, there are certain stories that I've dug up that aren't available online. I had to order like a reprint of an old pulp magazine and then take pictures of it with my phone and do an OCR scan and repair it and then go in and it's a jumbled mess and I got to read. So there are the fiction stuff does come with some bullshit, because especially with the pulp, because a lot of this stuff isn't online, right? You can find where it is and you can find what book it's in, but then you got to hunt. You got to actually buy the book, and there's some work that goes into it. Sometimes you get these manuscripts that are from 18. I'm sure Mike can understand that. You get these manuscripts that are from 18 whatever or 19 whatever, and they're just a mess. The way that they would organize print and manuscripts back 150, 200 years ago is very different than the way that we do it now. So you got to like organize, and if you have a book that's 20,000, 30,000, 40,000 words, going down and tick tick tick, okay, delete this space, do this space, blah blah blah, 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 put this here, tab here, blah, blah, and just like organizing it takes fucking forever sometimes. And you're in front of your computer for hours and hours. I have certain books that I was probably told, I didn't do it all in one sitting, but probably like 20 hours in front of my fucking computer doing this. So making books, that's why I put that meme out sometimes where it says people who read books, and has a couple of guys that are wearing sweaters and they're looking all handsome. And then you have people who make books and there's a Monster Energy drink and their hair's frizzed out and they got rings under their eyes. Dude, making books is hard.
It is, man. Like, man, just go. Okay, dads, go back and just listen to that episode we did on like being a dissident publisher. Fuck, there's so much that goes into it, and it's like it's funny. It's funny sometimes when you see, like, I'm always like kind of encouraged to see people starting up their own publishing companies and everything like that. Like, I don't really view it as like, oh shit, the competition or whatever. I think it's great, but I also know what's involved. So it's not surprising to me that a lot of times what happens is you'll get like a promising new sort of like imprint or publishing company that springs up, puts out 3 books, and then gives up. I'm not at all surprised because it's way harder than it looks. Like it just looks like easy money, right? And there's not even like a lot of money, but like it just looks like an easy way to like sit at home and like work from home. Oh shit, boy, it's not. It's the exact opposite, dude. It'll ruin your life.
Yeah. So anyway, let's move on here. Shibiru Hai says, "What do y'all look for at antique shops?" I love antique shops.
Oh fuck, that's a good question. Maybe a nice humidor. Books, obviously, man. Like when I there's like a nice old bookshop in the city where I live in, and like a lot of times I will just go there and sort of just like peruse what they've got. Like there's something about like just books that were published, say from like, I don't know, 1850 all the way up to about 1920. That's like whenever I see one of them online, whenever I see like, and I don't know why, it doesn't matter what publisher it was, they've all got the same look. They're all formatted kind of the same way. It just makes me happy, you know, like when I see these things. There's just something going on there. I don't know, something in that like era that was like the high point of Western civilization, the high point of like phenotypic fitness. People were smarter than we are now. And anyway, yeah. So a lot of times I'll like get a book in my hand. It's like from 1910. I'm like, oh, this is the shit. I just take it way more seriously, just like for that reason. Like even more so, it's not just because it's old that it's good. Like, you know, a book from 1910, I will definitely look at that and be like, better take this seriously. Even more than like one that's like from 1710 or something like that. Because you get these old manuscripts that are like, you know, I mean, they're printed. That's like, you know, it's not like handwritten on vellum or something like that. But they're just, they're not as nice, and in a lot of cases, they're not as good. But anyway, I'm sort of getting off on a tangent here. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that's all I got for that question, Dave. What do you get at antique shops?
If I see like, especially one, most antique shops are just like full of junk, right? Yeah. If you go to most antique shops, they're just full of junk that like people from the World War II era left behind after they died and their house got cleaned out. So there's very rarely anything really good. But if I see a nice one, I sometimes have to just keep walking, because if I walk in there, I will buy some bullshit. So yeah. I go in there. I do look at the books, but I love little mugs. I love glass. I love old paintings. I love maps and globes. I love anything that's really old timey and beautiful. Right. I love things that are have the vibe of Art Nouveau to them. I love things that are ornate. So it's very anything specific. One thing I really, really love, I love old timey paintings of Santa Claus, like ones from like the 30s. Like there'll be like little coffee mugs with or ceramics with old timey Santa Claus on. He looks like Father Christmas. He's got the long robes. I love those. I don't know. I am I'm not a kind of guy that's like, oh, well, it's this kind of this or that. I don't really know a lot about, I'm not an antiques guy, but I am an antiques respecter. And there are certain things that'll catch my eye if I go in there. So that's kind of stuff that I look for.
Very good.
So next one is a pretty tough one, right? This one, let's try not to take an hour. Let's try to answer this as quickly as possible. Shibiru says, top 5 albums to own physical copies of. Good Lord.
Yes, that is a tough one. So, I mean, beyond just like listing my top 5 albums or whatever, So I tried very, very hard. I'm a huge Soundgarden fan. Guys know how I feel about grunge. I know that it's like most people disagree, whatever. Soundgarden is my jam, especially the early Soundgarden, Bad Motorfinger and before. And in fact, part of my musical journey of like, basically like in the 90s, like when I came up and music, what was going on at the time, that was really what was happening. It was like rock all of a sudden became very, very much more simplistic or stripped down, I guess is a better way to put it, and sort of very much more immediate or whatever. And so that was my jam. And then, throughout a little bit later on in the 90s, I started to get into more complicated music, stuff that was like a little bit weirder, stuff that was a little bit more proggy, and that just kept going and going and going and going until I got into the, really, really bizarre stuff. And then something happened where I came back to my roots of just like loving like stripped down like riffs and stuff like that. And what happened was I discovered two albums. One of them was called Ultra Mega OK. Another one's called Louder Than Love, and both of them by Soundgarden. So these are really special albums for me. Soundgarden in 1989 released Louder Than Love, and just like a few months after that, they put out a video, and I have it on VHS because I don't think it exists in any other format at all. It's called Louder Than Live, and it is just a fucking blistering performance. It's unbelievable. It's Chris Cornell at the absolute height of his vocal prowess. The band is firing on all cylinders. They've got an extra guitar player. Oh, no, sorry. They've got Jason Everman on bass, I think. Yes. The guy who played in Nirvana and Soundgarden. It's amazing. It's like one of the most unbelievable live performances of all time. And I looked and looked and looked and looked to find even a CD of this thing because I had it on VHS. And I could not find it on CD. And I just had to settle for like recreating my own, because it had like its own album artwork and everything like that. I had to settle like back in like maybe 2000 or 2001 for like recreating the physical copy myself. Never ended up finding Louder Than Live. So that would be one of my top albums to own physical copy of. If anybody could find a copy of that on vinyl and send it to me, I'll send you the entire the entire output of Imperium Press. So that would be one of them. Another one that I would put on the list of albums to own physical copies of. I'm a huge fan of Nurse with Wound, which is a like total opposite of like stripped down like riff rock. It is a experimental noise project, part of the early industrial scene in England in the like late 70s, early 80s. It's very hard to describe, but it's just extremely apocalyptic. It's basically created by a guy who's like a visual artist that like does some of the most bleak and scary artwork you've ever seen in your life, and this is his musical project. It's kind of like legendary in underground circles. There's an album by Nurse with Wound called Homotopy to Marie. It's hard to say, like, if you want to get into Nurse with Wound, it's very inaccessible stuff, but this is probably the best record. I would say that one. I would put on this list Faith No More. Now, I would say that the single of the song Digging the Grave, which has a B-side from my favorite album of all time, which we reviewed on a Culture Dads episode, that B-side is so good. It's like it belonged on the album, but the album was already like 52 minutes long or something. It's such a good album. There's so much stuff on it that the B-side is still essential. So I would say I do have a physical copy of that, and I treasure it. What else? That's only 3 albums. I better hurry up. I'd say MC5, Kick Out the Jams. That is a classic. We should talk about that at some point on Culture Dads, Dave. I've always wanted to do a pre-punk episode. All the shit that sort of became punk, which is actually, I think, you would like a lot better than some of the punk stuff. So MC5, Kick Out the Jams. What else? I'm just going to throw out the Boredom's Pop Tatari, which is a crazy Japanoise, sort of like it's the best way to describe it as a manga comic for your ears. It's just crazy, crazy stuff. It's sort of like a cross between punk, noise rock, and riff rock. It's just so good. So anyway, there's my 5.
Okay, so the way that I actually thought the most about this question here, this is what I've been churning in my head. So I was like, is this like a desert island situation? Is it me personally?
Yeah, it's like it was hard to answer that because you don't know, right? Is it like your top albums or is it like what?
So this is the way that I'm going to do it. So if you are a culture dad and you are getting into vinyl, which you should, because nothing sounds even close to the texture and the tone of a vinyl. That is the best, with some vintage speakers and an old school turntable. There is no experience on earth that comes close to that. Most Zoomers haven't even heard music like that. The best listening music experience of sonic ecstasy that you can experience is on vinyl. And if you are collecting your vinyls, you're getting your collection together, which you should. If I had to recommend 5 bass albums that should be on every shelf of every culture dad, I would pick, obviously, the easiest answer, I would say get the first 5 Black Sabbath albums, but we're not going to do this. So we're going to pick one of the first 5.
That's a cop-out. They're amazing, but yeah.
We're going to pick one. And the one that I think is the best album of that era is Master of Reality.
Yes, I'm glad you picked that. That's the best one for sure.
Master of Reality. Then I would go, I would say Deep Purple Machine Head. That's one that needs to be on there. I would say, oh geez, Deep Purple Machine Head. I would go with a Rush 2112. You got to have that album. You just can't not have that album. I would go with a Cream Disraeli Gears. And then the last one I really struggled with, because it's like you could go, a lot of people would say you got to have a Led Zeppelin on there. I'm not a Led Zeppelin guy. But, if you are a Led Zeppelin guy, put a Led Zeppelin on there. If I had to say, like, if we're talking like the greatest albums of all time, must have bass for any vinyl culture dad collection, maybe. And I'm not even really a big fan of this band, but this album is just so timeless. Pink Floyd's The Wall. The Wall is like such a masterpiece album front to back that you just can't not have it. If you haven't heard that album at least one time on vinyl front to back, then it's just, you have to. It's one of those experiences. It's one of those things you have to do at least once. Like this, you have to go on a roller coaster at least once. You have to try LSD once. You know what I mean? You gotta do like these crazy, you gotta jump into a quarry at least once or whatever, right? Whatever it is, you gotta do it at least once. You have to hear Pink Floyd's The Wall on vinyl at least once. There are a few other bands that I would have liked to put on my list that I didn't put there. Rainbow Rising, Mountain Climbing. Obviously there's some other really based. I have Candlemass Nightfall if I had to go to a desert island, I would not leave without that album. There's Nevermore albums I would take. There's thrash albums I would take. There's Manowar albums I would take. So there's like a lot of other stuff. Dio, Holy Diver, I would take that with me to the desert island. But this isn't desert island. This is you as a culture dad starting out your vinyl collection for the best listening experiences in recent history. And I would think that those 5 initial albums that I just mentioned should go into your collection.
Yeah, that was a good answer. I got a lot to say about Pink Floyd and Led Zeppelin, but that would carry us too far afield. Did you name a Zeppelin album or? I
no? Did not. But
okay, yeah.
If you want to switch one of those out for a Zeppelin album, that's up to you guys.
Okay. Yeah, good list.
I just don't think Zeppelin has put out an album as good. And this is me detached from my I'm not a big Zeppelin guy. This is me detached from that bias. I do not believe that Led Zeppelin has put out a complete album that is as good as the ones that I've mentioned.
Interesting. All righty. So what's the next question we got here?
This is a big one.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'll read it because it's for Dave here. So the question is for Dave. This is a spicy one. I'm a fan and mean no offense, but it's an offensive question. From my viewpoint, it seems like you're somewhat open to things completely non-rock, but pre-rationally hostile to anything rock-ish that isn't in the near-closed holy canon of based pagan metal/classic rock, which you then post hoc seek for technical musical justifications to gatekeep against said heresy, as opposed to nakedly saying, if it's rock and it isn't pagan, then I don't want to hear it. As you see it, how does your pagan identity affect your perception of music? And related, how does your vision of tribalism affect how you view hired gun virtuosos versus bands? Chronologically, did rediscovering your pagan identity coincide with a change, perhaps gradual, in your musical tastes?
So, this is from a guy named Clarence. Clarence, I'm not at all offended by your question. I think that's a very cool question. Definitely called me out there, but let's go mask off. That's how I am. Like what you just described is exactly how I am. And it's not even something I consciously think about. I hear, especially with music, I hear something and I don't even rationalize. I love it or I don't. And if I love it, I afterwards I come up with all kinds of arguments of why it's the greatest shit ever made. So I'm a passionate guy. I love things on a very on a level that very deeply, right? There are songs that make me cry. There are songs that like I can't control myself. I get all wild. I am a passionate, raw kind of emotion guy. I love music. I adore it. It's like whatever. So when I get on something, it's the best shit ever. And you know what? It's not even that I'm trying to convince or whatever. It is literally in my head. I know this is now the best shit I've ever heard, and everybody needs to hear it. And you know what? Big Dave's recommendations are always good. Very rarely do I recommend things to people. And also, I'm pretty considerate when somebody says, "Hey, can you recommend me some music?" I go, "Hey, what do you like?" So it's not like I'm forcing my shit on people. I like to make recommendations that I think contour to what people's likes are already. As far as like hostile, like as far as like I just mentioned, Master of Reality is like my favorite album of all time. As far as it being pagan, dude, Black Sabbath are a Christian band, and who is the Master of Reality to a Christian? The Master of Reality is God. The album Master of Reality is their devotion to God, is about their devotion to God and fear of the devil and like all this kind of stuff. Listen to the album. Listen to Black Sabbath. They are a religious, but a lot of the lyrics are written by Geezer Butler, who is a very, very deeply devout Catholic. So, and that's why it offended them so bad when they got, very early on, they got labeled as this like black magic occultist band or whatever. That like deeply offended them because they were religious guys. Tony Iommi is an Italian. He's an Italian British guy. He's Catholic. You know what I mean? I'm sure they probably looked into Aleister Crowley and like looked at it superficially and occultism superficially to like get some aesthetic or whatever inspiration. But at the end of the day, they are a Christian band. So I am not like being when something slaps, it slaps for me. Now, and another thing is with me being a pagan, it's like if you go into the heathen community, probably the type of music that gets lifted up as the heathen music outside of metal is neo-folk. It took me a long time to get around to neo-folk. I did not like it at first, and I still am very hypercritical. There's only a handful of acts that I think are good. For example, I like Mr. Dan Cap's band, Vulcansman. But even Vulcans, if you go listen to my interview with him early on, I even say, like, this isn't even really my kind of music. I'm still kind of wrapping my head around it. His music is very accessible. It's not, it's very guitar driven. It's not too archaic. So even that I had my trouble wrapping my head around. So, Mike, what do you think he's talking about with the gatekeeping? Is he talking about like kind of my critiques of really like fringe? genres.
Yeah, I wonder if the implication there is that that like by saying like, you know, listen to Man of War, they kind of like perpetuate, for lack of a better term, barbarian tropes or whatever it is. I wonder if the implication there is that this is a way to kind of like smuggle paganism into the conversation. I don't really know exactly what that side of the question was kind of getting into.
Manowar also has a lot of songs about crusaders, and they use the term "kingdom come" quite a bit, and you know,
Yeah.
they're not. But so I don't really. He's right that I do that. That I like irrationally like fall in love with something, and then post hoc justify why it's great. I do that with everything. You know.
Well, here's the thing. Like this actually goes to a deeper conversation where that's what we do with everything. I think most people, if they were truly honest with themselves, whether they're Christian, whether they're pagan, whether they're atheist, whether they're Natsoc, whether they're fascist, whether they're libertarian, whatever they are, I think most people, if they were honest with themselves, and if they drilled down to the kind of bedrock of why they believe what they believe and what's driving it all, you know, what their sort of core values are, that these are things that are driven fundamentally by aesthetics. And now that seems very superficial, but aesthetics are not at all superficial. Aesthetics are deeply, deeply evolved. There's a reason why you like the taste of beef, but you don't like the taste of grass, right? This is not a superficial aesthetic thing. This is something that is hundreds of millions of years old, that is carried in deep in your DNA. And even something as, you know, that's much deeper than something like, you know, being aesthetically attracted to, say, the archaic versus the modern, or the classical versus the medieval, or something like that. But these things ultimately do, I think, have they have pre-rational roots. It's not like, you know, I mean, people don't arrive at their worldview. Most people, I mean, there's a lot of sort of like, you know, semi-autistic people in our sphere, and you know, we overuse that term as like just as kind of a joke. But you know, even people who are quite rational, or you know, a little bit on the spectrum, even they generally do not arrive at their worldview by syllogism, right? Like nobody ever sort of like heard a syllogism, you know, like the classic syllogism of like Socrates or whatever, and then fall down and start weeping and change their worldview and convert to a religion. Nobody ever did that, right? The reason why people believe what they believe, are the religion that they are, and have their most deep and core beliefs, is because of things that are that they know in their gut. They know deep down at the bottom of their soul are true. And it's not even true necessarily. It's something that's beyond truth. It's something that's prior to truth, which is something that's good, right? Good comes before truth in this sense. And if you know that it's good, you'll come up with reasons why it's true. And that's not I mean, I guess it is a post hoc justification, but that's the way it is, and that's the way it ought to be. That's the way it's supposed to be. I mean, again, it goes to a much deeper discussion of whether propositions or imperatives are sort of at the core of things. But I believe that people decide what is beautiful and what is good before they decide what's true, before they come upon what's true. So aesthetics and like just loving something for what it is aesthetically is kind of like, I mean, for me personally, my pagan identity was informed by music and not the other way around. We talked about this in the nationalist classical music episode that we did, where some of the most formative influences in my life were musical influences, listening to Bach and like with my dad as a child, and just like weeping at the beauty of this music, and that nothing can ever dislodge that, right? And also later on, listening to nationalist classical music like Modest Mussorgsky or Edvard Grieg or Tchaikovsky, or any of, like, there's so many names that we could mention, and Wagner, of course, and just being enraptured by it and thinking like that this is some of the most mystical, beautiful, amazing, soul-stirring experience that I've ever had, and that it's also tied to nationalism. And that if nationalism is bad, that means Wagner is bad. But like a fortiori, because Wagner is just like unassailably, like, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter like what truth you try, what syllogism you present to refute Wagner. Nothing will ever refute Sigmund's Funeral March. Nothing will ever refute that, right? That is just, it's prior to truth, right? So this is a big reason why I believe what I believe now.
So what he's saying here is that it sort of feels like he's implying that when he listens to things, he rationalizes why it's good before he likes it. That feels a little alien to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it feels alien to me too. I wonder if in the question, because it's not 100% clear what was being said. I wonder if in the question there's an assumption that seeking for justifications why music is good after you decide that it's good. I think the assumption there is that that's the wrong way around. No, that's the right way around. That's how you're supposed to do it.
Yeah.
And in fact, like, my worldview is in large part generated by aesthetic experiences. And I think if most people were honest with themselves, they would come to the same conclusion about their own views.
Yeah, but he is right when he said, well, here's a deal. Like I said before, he goes, if it's rock and it isn't pagan, I don't want to hear it. That's hilarious. And you know, if I'm memeing, yeah, I would say that. And because I say also, I like 5 things. I do. And I don't really like going on to the fringes too far with certain things. But here's the deal. I don't feel that I'm a gatekeeper. I fully support neo-folk. Listen, for example, don't let my opinions cloud your enjoyment of other things, right? I am a grognard. I am very hard to please with certain things, and other things I love them probably more than I should, right? When I make recommendations, go listen to that. Go check out things, because I do in my domains of things that I do. I feel that I have a sophisticated and good taste of these types of things. So if you like the things that I like, my recommendations I feel are going to be top notch, because I'm the boss with that. You know what I mean? But what he's saying here, he goes, as you see it, how does your pagan identity affect your perception of music? And related, how does your vision of tribalism affect how you view hired gun virtuosos versus bands? My pagan identity. Here's the thing, dude. I've been a heathen for, I don't know, 15 years now. I don't even know how it does. It is so inside of me. It is so part of me. I can't even articulate how it does. It most definitely does influence how I like certain things, or how I'm attracted to certain aesthetics. And somebody that's not a heathen would probably be able to identify that. Me personally, I'm in it. I'm the fish in the water that can't see the water. I have no idea, right? And as far as vision of tribalism, how I view hired gun virtuosos versus bands, Mike, do you have I'm a little confused by this.
Yeah, I didn't know what he meant initially, but like rereading it, I know exactly what the question is. Okay, so if tribalism is important to us, if the group working as a coherent unit is something that we value and that we think that this is the way things should be, how does that make you view bands like something like an example of a band that I would think of that's less a band and more a vehicle for one guy is Nirvana, right? That band was Kurt Cobain. As soon as he's gone, the band's done, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe I don't know enough about Dio, but it would seem to me from the outside that Dio might be another one of those, right? Like, it's like the band is sort of like built around one guy, and then take as a counter example to that something like Black Sabbath or Led Zeppelin, where it really is more of a group dynamic, where the whole dynamic is based on the chemistry of the particular guys in that group, right? So which is better, or how does tribalism, or our view that like the group comes before the individual, perhaps, how does that inform our perception of the group dynamics of a band? Do we like bands that are more sort of like, just like the chemistry of those particular guys, or do we like bands that are more like one guy's vision, and like there are guys that are there to kind of help him carry out that vision?
Well, I think there's two things. I think that most bands have one guy that if they lost it, the band's done. Black Sabbath is not Black Sabbath without Tony Iommi. You can, and they did replace just about every member throughout their history and continue to make music that sounded like Black Sabbath, right? There was a time in the 80s where nobody in Black Sabbath was original, right? So except for Tony Iommi, and it still sounded like Black Sabbath. Black Sabbath is not Ozzy. Obviously, without Geezer Butler, Black Sabbath sounds less like Black Sabbath. It's the way that it is. And then you could go to like a Led Zeppelin. Without Jimmy Page, well, I guess not even Jimmy. Without Robert Plant, do you have Led Zeppelin? Could Led Zeppelin continue without Robert Plant?
The thing about Led Zeppelin is that I think that if you lose any of those guys, you don't have Led Zeppelin, which is why when the drummer died, that was the end of the band, right?
Yeah, like, you're right.
You can't lose Jimmy Page, okay? Because he is the main songwriter. I would say, at least in terms of like melodically and in terms of chord progression. Robert Plant, you can't lose him because like he's got the voice, right? Like that's what people think of Led Zeppelin. When they think of Led Zeppelin, they think of the screaming high vocals, I think. And John Bonham. I mean, all of the guys are just absolutely essential to that band. So yeah, I think they're a good example of a more tribalist type band arrangement, if we can say. Yes, yeah. Rush is a great example of that. They work as a unit. There's only 3 of them, but each one of the guys is totally essential. So that's like one paradigm for like, a band or whatever. I'm trying to think of like, something other than Sabbath, where it's like, here's a band where it's like, it's this guy's project, basically. He is the voice. He's the singer songwriter. That's the paradigm Megadeth. Of like the opposite. Yeah. Okay. There's a good one. Yeah. Megadeth for sure.
Megadeth is not Megadeth without Dave Mustaine, period. So
no.
I think in the second part of this, it presupposes that tribalism is some kind of like democracy. Tribalism is not without hierarchy. Tribalism, when we talk about tribalism, what we're talking about is in-group preference, right? You're talking about those who are in your in-group, those who are within your tribe, you have loyalty to, and those that are outside of your tribe, you have either less loyalty or no loyalty to. So this is not in the same thing as like having no hierarchy or everybody being a democracy. And I sort of think that he presupposes that a little bit here. That's just my speculation. I could be completely wrong, but as my understanding of tribalism does not impact how I view bands. I go back and forth. I love band. When I adore Yngwie Malmsteen, and I also adore Rush. It has little to do with kind of the genius of one man or the genius of a group of men, and it has more to do with how good their music is. That's literally it. I don't care how they organize, how it comes from one guy or 5 guys or 10 guys. If the music slaps, it slaps for me, period. But there does need to be in every group a leader, and this is tribalism. In tribalism, there is a chieftain always. So if you go to like something like Rush, Geddy Lee, he writes a lot of the music. He is kind of like the brain behind the operation. The aesthetics are kind of his idea. Everybody else is a pillar. If you lose him, it's no longer Rush. That's why Rush stopped after Neil Peart died, right? But the way that it is like he is the guy with the vision. There's always one guy that has the vision, right? So tribalism is not devoid of hierarchy, and in fact tribalism implies that there must also be a hierarchy. So I do not think that the dichotomy of virtuoso versus like complete band is an apt one. And discovering my pagan identity coincided with a change gradual in my music taste. Like I said before, maybe it did. I don't know. I can't answer that.
Yeah, for me, it was the other way around. I think that my aesthetic tastes led me to where I am. And that while for some people that sounds rather superficial, for me, people who are argued into their deepest worldview, that seems to me rather shallow. So anyway, yeah.
I actually agree. That's before I was a pagan, I was a fan of Dio and Manowar and Robert E. Howard and Lord of the Rings and fantasy and mythology, and I was into old world aesthetics before I became a pagan. So I guess it led me to it. Right.
Like people ask me like when did you convert? When did you become a pagan? Which is kind of like, when did you become white? I don't know. I just always was. And in fact, I view my paganism as an extension of my white identity. Again, maybe a controversial take, but this is only just to say that I think that the religious expression is bound up with something much deeper, something that you can't change, something that is inherited. So there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So moving on. Northern Lights Enjoyer says, have you noticed that a lot of us who found our way to the white right have experienced in a lot of the same non-racial, non-political subcultures? Why do you think this may be? So I actually think that this is truly a thing, right? There is a reason that so many of us press 9 in the chat if you are a fan of heavy metal, hard rock that we also like, and also like the same stuff that we do as far as fantasy and science fiction and Conan movies and Terminator. Press 9 in the chat if you like most of the same stuff or all of the same stuff we do. You're about to see everybody light up.
This is gonna be a 9 stack in the chat.
There's gonna be a 9. Here it comes. Yeah. So we, for some reason, right? Despite I see Yiz there, I see Solar Temple there, I see Ulfsark there, I see Corey there, I see everybody here that I'm familiar with on a personal level. These people all come from different parts of the country, different parts of the world. We're different age groups. We're Gen Xers, we're millennials, we're Zoomers, and we're all from different cultures. Some of us speak different languages, but for some reason, we all like the same shit. We all like based heavy metal, based rock and roll, Warhammer 40K, Lord of the Rings, etc. We like that shit. Why? I think that we are biologically predisposed to liking these things, and we are biologically predisposed to having the worldview that we do. I think this has less to do with, I don't think that we were argued into this or convinced. I think that we were born like this.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, this question ties in very well with what we were just talking about there. So when you think of like these non-political subcultures, you think of people who come together in terms of liking the same art, playing the same sports, liking the same music, driving the same cars, doing the same, getting into bodybuilding together, fandom, games. I don't know, maybe you're a juggalo or something like that. Like there's just so many different like subcultures that we share with others in the scene, right? And I think Dave's right. Like, these subcultures are, I think, outgrowths of genetic similarity. And if one were so inclined and had the means to do it, I think you could probably find something like, like if you do a genetic test with like 23andMe or something like that, I forget which one it is. They will tell you whether you're predisposed to liking coriander, or what do they call it? They call it coriander here in anyway. Whether you like whether you like sweet stuff or salty stuff, whether you like this or that, like in terms of like your actual like taste palette, they could tell this based on your DNA sample, right? And I think that if one were so inclined, and it might actually happen in the future, if if genomics don't collapse for reasons we talked about at the beginning of the stream. I think that if technology continues to march along, that you'll eventually find a gene for being interested in heavy metal and so on and so forth. I think that that's absolutely a thing, that these subcultures are in fact outgrowths of genetic similarity. And there's something to, like, I always counter signal the like sports ball meme. I mean, obviously sports is used as something to kind of like funnel away like radical energy. This is true, absolutely true. I think sports are useful and good and instructive, especially for kids growing up, very formative. But these subcultures, there is something to the idea that like it's a surrogate tribalism. These subcultures are kind of surrogate tribes. And of course, tribes are based on what? They're based on genetic similarity. And so I think that people who get into the same art scene, people who get in the same music scene, people who are interested in the same sport, especially playing the same sports, people who like, who are car people who like the same games and stuff like that, people who like the same books and literature. I mean, I think that these are all basically sort of, I'm searching for the right word here. They're proxies for the same genetics. Basically, they are people who are genetically similar, sort of finding their way towards each other. But they also give a They also fill a need, right? They fill a deep need for a tribalism, for being part of this group and not that. Like maybe you're a punk or you're a goth, but you hate metal, or you are like, what was it, like in the 50s with like mods and rockers or whatever. Like this is a tribalism, right? People need this kind of thing, and if they don't have it, they'll just invent it. And when they invent it, I think they will eventually kind of like find their way into these tribes, and that these tribes will actually become de facto tribes, like in the genetic sense, because probably people who are more predisposed to be like mods or whatever, or people who are more predisposed to be rockers, there's probably some genetic basis for that. So I think that this is part of the reason why people who are in the same subcultures tend to find their way into the radical right, is because A, these things are surrogate tribes, and B, the tribes actually break down along real lines, like lines that actually answer to some like brute material fact of reality in terms of your genes.
Yeah, and I also find it hilarious that if you go to like a sci-fi or a fantasy convention, and it's like completely ran by leftoids, like it's ran by what's the Sifwa. You go there, there'll be Black Lives Matter flags. There'll be like what's the rainbow flags, and it's like they're like all about these things. You go around, it's like there's no black people here. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's all it's like all white people. Like, where's this multiculturalism you guys are bringing in? I thought, and then you go to like a normal one, and it's like, there's but you know what, to be fair, there are like some like non-white groups that have adopted some of these aesthetics and kind of made their own. Like there's like a Mesoamerican sword and sorcery scene. They made their own sword and sorcery, like fucking Aztecs and shit. There's see,
I can respect that. I think that's cool when you make it your own, and it's not just like, not just like latching on to another culture's thing. Like that is like, I mean, the word LARP is just overused. I mean, if it can be applied to anything, it would be something like that, but where it's just like wholesale takes on like Tolkien aesthetics or whatever. No, do your own thing, celebrate your own culture, but sword and sorcery as a kind of structural model can be applied to your own thing. So I respect that.
Yeah. And you could go, man, there's awesome like heavy metal over in the East. You can find it in Brazil. There's actually some guys were like making fun. There's like I guess there's like a little movement of black exploitation like anime or whatever. I don't like anime at all, but they're like, I was like, dude, this is like their thing. You know what I mean? They like the shit. They made it their own. They made it in their image. It's got hip hop. It's their own thing. I think that's based for them. You know what I mean? Fucking let them do their thing. You know, it's not like they're stealing it and making it all weird. They're inspired by the style. They like the style. They grew up with it. You know, how many little black kids you see running around that have Goku shirts and shit? They grew up with that shit. So they took it and they made it and they infused it in their culture. Fucking let them. You know, I think that it's cool that there's like these little underground scenes from other people. And I am not one of these, like, I'm not going to go to India or go to Japan or go to Brazil and tell them they can't play heavy metal because they're appropriating my culture. That's just so weak and dumb. Heavy metal it is a Western white guy European creation. But you know what? If they love it and they think it's that badass that they want to take it and like do their own thing with it, I support that. I think that's fucking bass, dude. I've heard some really awesome metal out of Brazil and some really awesome metal out of the Middle East and shit, right? Let them do their thing. That might be controversial, but that's where I'm at. So anyway, let's go to the other questions here. And Corey in the chat's a surprising amount of Latin American tabletop role players too. Yeah, dude, there is, dude. I have seen some really cool tabletop stuff. Dude, they loved it. Let me tell you something. So I was lurking on Twitter a while back, right? I was lurking on Twitter a while back, and I was looking at these old head manga guys, and what they were originally doing was they were bringing up like new Western anime and like dunking on it and say that it sucks and everything. And they're like, whatever happened to the West and this stuff that they used to, and they're showing images from the old Savage Sword of Conan comic and Fire from the movie Fire and Ice. And what happened to this art? You know, this was, and then they start reminiscing about the stuff from the 80s and early 90s that we would create. And they're like, where's this stuff? This stuff was so bad, dude. The stuff, the cultural exports that we used to do were fucking based. The stuff that we did, and it inspired different peoples from around the world to go then create their own stuff. And that is fucking cool. That is the power and the beauty of the stuff that we used to make. Right. And I'm not saying that those cultures don't, you know, I love the OG JRPGs. I love old Kung Fu movies. There's stuff from outside my culture that I think is based too. You know what I mean? And some of that has gone into inspiring me. So it's just like, I don't know. I think it's a shame that we have kind of at least on a mainstream level have relinquished aesthetics and art and subculture that is very distinctly us, right? It's no longer mythopoetic and muscular and based, and that's coming back. It's coming, believe me, it's coming back, but it's going to be underground, right? So even people that are outside that don't even speak our language, like these old Japanese guys, they don't speak a lick of English, and they're on Twitter in Japanese Twitter lamenting like that we don't create our stuff anymore because they thought it was so cool. So I don't know where I was going with that, but yeah.
Alrighty. Yeah, no, I think that was a good answer to that question. So the next question is about a topic that is near and dear to my heart. It is, why is Canada so secretly based? Good question. Good question. Well, as a Canadian, it's hard for me to see how this is any mystery at all. But here's the thing. If you want to understand Canada in a nutshell, you have to understand it as the people who thought that the American Revolution was gay. And this in some ways kind of explains why Canadians are sort of like reflexively knee-jerk anti-American now. because in a way, this is kind of part of our ethnogenesis, right? I like Americans. We did an episode in Culture Dads on America, or sorry, on Canada, where I explained my my parents' disgust and dismay at when I told them that I asked them, like, why is America so much better than us at everything? And they were just like, what? That's the thing. America is the imperial center. It is the center of Western culture at the moment, or certainly for the last 100 years or so.
Yeah, it was.
Yes. So you can understand why I would say that as like a 6-year-old kid, but I've since come to reconsider my view. I think of Canada as extremely based, as like Canadians were the people who wanted to remain part of the British Empire. They thought the American Revolution was gay. They had nothing to do with that. They didn't want anything to do with the revolution. In many cases, the people who became old stock Canadians were originally Americans that moved to Canada when the revolution started happening, right? They didn't want any of that. They're basically the descendants. I mean, obviously, all original stock Americans are descended from Brits, as are Canadians, where they're not French Canadians. They're basically the descendants. The Canadians are basically the descendants of British trads, right? We're one of the most Tyric peoples alive today, to use a term of art that we've talked about quite a bit on Culture Dads. Very, very traditionalist in our bones. So if you think of Canadians as orphaned British loyalists, it actually sort of starts to bring our national character into sharper relief. It makes a lot more sense to you when you think of us as loyalists, or like, descendants of loyalists. We've lost the content of our loyalism, which was, we're basically British people. We're British subjects. We've lost that, but we've retained the structural features that were built into us that made us that way, that were probably, again, genetically predisposed, right? And these structural features of Canadianness are actually our greatest strengths. Things like, we love convention, we love custom, we love conventionality. We're very deferent. We are obedient to authority. We're very nostalgic people, right? We love the past. We love our history. We love our culture. If you listen to a band like the Tragically Hip, like, there are a lot of American bands that like celebrate their Americanness, but not in the way I would say quite as deep as the Tragically Hip celebrates their Canadianness. A lot of Americans don't even know who that band is. We're very nostalgic people. We love our past. We love our history. We love our traditions. We're very high trust people, right? These are our greatest strengths, and they're part of our tierism. They're part of our traditionalism. They're part of our being that one side of the Faustian coin, shall we say, the traditionalist side. But without consciously thinking of ourselves as part of the British Empire, without thinking of ourselves as loyalists, as fundamentally British people who are just live in a different place, these structural features, like I was saying, the conventionality, the obedience to authority, all that stuff is very easily subverted. Canadians do very, very well under empire, but we don't do that well under globalism. Like, we're descended from some of the most hard-ass motherfuckers who ever lived. We are descended from guys who like conquered the New World and said, this New York winter, it's a little too balmy and tropical for me. I'm going to go fucking north. That's too warm. I'm just going to go a couple of degrees south of the Arctic Circle. That's where I want to live. We're descended from those guys, right? So these are some pretty hard-ass people. And it's the same for all frontier and warrior peoples. It's the same for the lowland Scots and the Highland Scots, of course. The Scandinavians. It's the same for the Japanese. It's always the most hard-ass barbarian peoples who end up with like a Justin Trudeau leading them eventually. Like the Japanese are a shadow of what they once were. The Scandinavians, obviously, very different from what they were in the Bronze Age and the Iron Age. Canadians are kind of the same. For some reason, we're descended from badass lumberjacks and people who, you know, would like kill bears with a spear and shit like that. But now we are reduced to something less than what we were, and that's just the way it goes. I don't know why that is. It's sort of a historical mystery. Anyway, this is all to say that I think why we're based basically is that we're loyalists. So yeah, that's the short answer to that question.
I just think that Canada is, I like Canada. You know, I think it's cringe. You know, Americans do this thing where they don't, oh, Canada, America's hat, and they just like make fun of America's attic, or they make fun of Canada. Dude, Canada is its own distinct thing. And for Americans that haven't been up there, it is a beautiful, beautiful place, man. The forests and the water and the lakes and rivers and everything's so pristine. It's, the air smells different. And the people are, you know, I'm sure if you go to some libtard center, people are going to be kind of kooky and weird and gross. But if you go out, just like regular Canadians, they're all very nice. Probably not all, so I'm sure there's dicks, but they just have a different vibe. They're very hospitable. They're very chill. They're very willing to like make recommendations and share stuff with you. They're like, oh no, you got to try this. They're just really cool, easygoing. They're sort of like Americans, except like if they like smoked a bunch of weed and chilled out. You know, that's kind of like what I get from and the food, dude. Canadian food gets slept on. Canadian comfort food gets slept on. Go get a poutine and have a beer and go watch a hockey game up in Canada. I know those are kind of like the stereotypical things, but dude, their pubs are cool. Dude, Canada is cool. They got great snacks, great food, great beer. It's a good time. And the country is just gorgeous. So Big Dave loves Canada.
Yeah, it's good, man. If you want to get a sort of flavor of like the Canadian character, I mean, like Canadians, like even the ones that live in the cities, unless they're the real shit lib ones, are still, they kind of have a little bit of a hick thing going on, right? Like if you want to get a good idea of what the Canadian character is kind of like, watch an episode of the Red Green Show. You're going to see a lot of Canadian archetypes in that. Or, you know, if you want to get something a little more urbane, but also like seriously British in its own way, if you can sort of get past like what sounds like an American accent, watch Kids in the Hall. A lot of Americans don't know about Kids in the Hall, and like no fucking Australians do. I made it my mission when I first got here to spread the gospel of Kids in the Hall. Those are very Canadian, like cultural things, and I think you can get a window into who we are by watching them. But yeah, I mean, like obviously I think Canada's super based. It's like it's a gorgeous country. It's pristine, and much of it is untouched wilderness. And there's definitely an aspect of what they call, what is it? The conservatism of the fringes. So people who basically leave their homeland and go somewhere else end up become very conservative and identify with the place that they came from, even if they didn't while they were there. That is definitely the case for me. I always found it distasteful because I had a lot of friends back home who were like, oh, nationalism is stupid and irrational and whatever, you know, just like new atheist, like fedora bullshit. But like, I've always thought that was gay, but, I definitely like understood the depth and importance of my Canadian identity after I left in a way that was like hard to understand even when I was there. And going back, like I just went back to visit over Christmas this year. There's a feel of going to a northern country, that is vastly different from where I'm living right now, and is probably different from most places in the world. There's a feel to it that it's hard to explain. It's very, very hard to put into words, but that feel has infused us as a people. I think it's probably infused people throughout the world who live in northern climes. There's a kind of stoicness about it. There's a kind of bleakness in the Canadian soul that you maybe get in the Russian soul as well, and in Scandinavians and everything. There's a kind of, well, there's a reason why black metal came out of Scandinavia. You could imagine something very much like that coming out of Canada as well. It's something about like living in a northern place just makes it sort of imposes a grim like soul or whatever, like, you know, a sort of grim psychology or psyche on you. It's very unusual, actually. I think the Canadian sort of psyche is very unique, and yeah, I miss it. I definitely miss being there.
Yeah, it's good stuff up there, guys. If you ever been to Canada, if you're I know if you're like in the deep south or something, it's quite a hike. But if you're up north, man, go take a trip up to Canada. It's really cool. And I also got to say, dude, some of my favorite people, like in our scene, that are content creators and stuff, are Canadian. There's a very specific kind of weird humor and the way that they talk, and the way that the kind of vibe that they bring to the table is its own thing. And I recognize it and I appreciate it, and I'm a Canada respecter. So let's move on here. Okay, so this is a good one. So anonymous patron says, I am a 24-year-old Gen Z who struggles with decadence and degeneracy prevalent in our society. What kind of advice would you give someone trying to escape that lifestyle and move into one that allows them to find a good wife and have a family? This is tough. Mr. Anon, because first of all, I would say, you guys listening that are young guys, one of the things that I am kind of critical of this kind of sphere is, and this is going to sound a little gay, but is kind of the judgment that comes on. It's like we are a shame culture, and sometimes that works, but other times that causes guys to bottle it up, to hide it, and to lie about it. And it doesn't actually get to the root of solving their problems and helping them out of that. It just kind of calls them names. There are certain personalities that doesn't, there are certain people that can be bullied out of being scumbags, right? And I'm not saying, Mr. Anon, that you're a scumbag, but there are certain people that can be bullied out of bad behaviors, and there's other people that just can't be bullied. And they're either going to not avoid it, or they're either going to avoid it and lie about it, or they're going to just say, fuck you guys, and bounce, or just not listen. I am the furthest of the latter, right? If I'm doing something that is probably not good behavior, and you come up like talking shit to me, I'm going to double down, right? If you come up to me and say, Dave, you've put on too much weight, Dave, you're drinking too much. I don't drink too much, but if you're drinking too much, you're doing this, blah, 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 you're a degenerate, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, how about this? Fuck you. I'm going to drink more now, right? That's just how I am. And there's a lot of people that have that trait. We don't want that reaction. We want to help guys. We want guys to get to the root of their problems and change for the better. We want maximum good results. Firstly, Mr. Anon, I don't know why you are in this lifestyle, but maybe this doesn't apply to you, but this would have applied to me. I had too many scumbag friends. I had too many friends that were doing drugs. I had too many friends that were drinking all the time. I had too many friends that were nihilist retards. I had too many friends that were white trash scumbags popping pills and laying with unsavory women and not taking their future seriously and did not have a virtuous outlook. You are who you associate with, period. There's no escape it. So those guys that do have that lifestyle and won't give it up, it's time for a little bit of a separation, right? You might love these guys. They might even have good hearts. A lot of these guys that have these lifestyles are good people, and you meet them and they love you. You love them, and you care about each other. You have history together. All of this kind of stuff is very unfortunate, but you have to create distance between you and those people that have those lifestyles that make those kinds of decisions. And you need to surround yourself with, one, people that are smarter than you, and two, people that are more successful and people that are more virtuous than yourself. You need to get into a friend group of people that can influence you to work out, to make more money, to find women, to do all these kinds of things. Another thing with the women, get rid of your dating apps. Get rid of all that trash. Good women of sound mind do not use dating apps. I stand by that. The only women, you see, women have this thing where they innately are suspicious of strangers. Any woman that is willing to just go willy-nilly lay with strangers is not a good woman. There's something wrong with her. She has daddy issues. She was abused. She's retarded in the head. There's something wrong with her to do that. Women still to this day, quality women, same vetting processes that women did for all of history. They use their social circles. They want you to be vetted by their social circles. You come into their social circle, you have to make friends with their friends. You have to make friends with people that are adjacent to their friends. You have to know their brothers, their cousins, etc. And after you're there in the mix for a while and are known as a known, trustable, vetted presence in their life, then they will consider you for courtship. Now, this is complicated because of the isolation of technology, but those social systems are still there. You can't tell me that they're not. I wipe my entire ass with the manosphere. I have seen it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's very sound advice. The idea that that there are no shortcuts, that you need to establish a friend circle, that you need to establish a social circle, and that you're going to find if you want to find a good wife and have a family with her, you're going to find her that way. You're going to find her through that social circle. There was some good advice that Dave put out on Telegram recently that I would encourage people to read about finding about what to look for, not just how to find someone, but what to look for. And basically the TLDR is that you want loyalty above everything else. But as for how to find a good wife, or a girl who is wife material, just to sort of say something a little bit peripheral to what Dave said, you need to get busy. You need to, first of all, I mean, you obviously need to work on your own shit. You need to work on making sure that you have a stable job, all the basics, right? You need to become a good man, okay? Everybody knows that, but that's so important. Beyond that, you need to join some sort of thing. If you want to find a woman that's wife material, you need to join some sort of thing where you might find women that have common interests. And this, it also ties into the friend circle thing, right? Because you're going to meet people, you're going to meet men who are interested in the same things that you're interested in, that know women who have somewhat similar interests or whatever. You got to put yourself in places where women actually go. Something like, a reading group, for example, or like I was part of a writers group just before I started Imperium Press. And of course, I've been happily in a relationship for a long time, not looking for anybody or whatever. But there were so many eligible women at this thing. It was ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. A language learning group, learn how to speak French, learn how to speak German or something like that. There are lots of women who are doing that too. A cooking class or whatever. There are lots of places where other than a pub or a bar or whatever the fuck, where you can put yourself in that women actually go. Another thing that I would say in terms of how to find a good wife, and this is really sort of reinforcing a lot of what Dave said, is don't be too eager to leave your hometown. A lot of people are, we're taught from day one that what you're supposed to do traditionally is you're supposed to, leave your parents' home and then fly the coop and then move somewhere halfway across the country, make a go of it, and, go on an adventure and blah, 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 whatever, right? You're supposed to basically piss off and leave your parents behind, leave your family behind, leave your hometown behind, and go on an adventure. That's retarded. That's absolutely not what you're supposed to do. I certainly bought into that hook, line, and sinker. And it's not good advice unless you live in an absolute shit lib part of town, and in which case just move to some other part of your city. Unless you live in like San Francisco or something like that, there's really no excuse. I would say, or unless you live in a place that's extremely dilapidated and like really is falling apart. Don't be too eager to leave where you're from. If you're 24 years old, okay. If you're much older than that, if you're like north of 30 or whatever, it gets very hard to make new friends. It gets very hard to to ensconce yourself in a new friend group if you're much older than about 25 or 30 or so. So before you look for a wife, you need to extend your friend group. And this is done most easiest where your friend group already actually is. So like, again, to echo what Dave said, the best way to find a wife is to find someone who's part of your extended friend group, because, you're going to go through all those vetting procedures, so to speak, those time-tested like social vetting systems. You're going to put yourself into a position where you can, basically have the most opportunities. I think also part of this question is how to tell a good woman, how to tell that someone is actually wife material. One thing I would say is look very closely at her family. Now, obviously, you don't want to be like, looking for somebody that's absolutely perfect or whatever. You want to take the opportunities that you have, right? But look at her family. Does she have problems with her dad? Are her parents divorced? Is she an only child? Is she not close to her siblings? Are her parents like career track? Do they care mostly about their career and not so much about their children? Does her family get together as a family like more than once or twice a year or whatever? Any of these things don't really bode all that well for loyalty, commitment, and fertility, for the desire for more than like 1.1 children, right? It's not to say that like, a girl who's an only child wouldn't make him a good mom or whatever, but like when you get a lot of these things starting to line up, it's starting to tell you a story, right? Look at her family. How her parents' marriage looks is probably going to be pretty close to how your marriage looks later on. Another thing I've been watching Sam Hyde videos recently. I never really watched much of his stuff before, but one of the things I've been watching some of his like advice videos. One of the things he says, which is funny, it's like a Chinese proverb, and I guess it's a real Chinese proverb. It says, "An ugly wife is a treasure in the home." Which is like hilarious. And what they're getting at, I think, is it's not just that like, if your wife is ugly, she won't cheat on you. I think what that's getting at is to say that sex and romance are things that kind of fade over time. These are important things. And in a healthy marriage, sex and romance will be present. But they will fade over time. Your relationship needs to be founded on more than attraction. It needs to be founded on more than like, just like physical compatibility. You need to want the same things. You need to be willing to commit. You need to want, if you want children, obviously she needs to want that too. You need to have the same values. And especially if you are anywhere near the Culture Dads podcast, you need to find a woman who is able to accept your beliefs, and that's not easy. Mm-hmm. So, yes, good luck with that. And they're out there, definitely. Like women are at the end of the day, unless they have been paused by feminism and a whole bunch of other gay nonsense, women are, I think, naturally quite conservative. They naturally want to. They want to go along with the the wisdom of their culture. This can be used. This can be a very good thing, or it can be a bad thing. It's sort of just in it of itself a neutral thing. But yeah, so you need to find a woman who's ultimately loyal, who wants the same things that you want, and that doesn't have too many family problems.
Yeah. Ignore everything the manosphere says. Everything. Just completely disregard anything you learn from there. It is a misery cult designed to pull you in, suck in your attention and your resources and everything. It is a scam. It is a cult. Disregard it in its entirety. There's actually right now a surplus of available women that can't find a good man because every guy is like looking for a 10 out of 10 dime piece to pump and dump, and they don't want to do that. And the moment that they say that they don't want to do that, they get ghosted. They're getting pretty disenfranchised with women are getting disenfranchised with dating too. There are tons of these girls, especially ones in their 20s right now. Younger millennials, older Zoomer girls that are from places like the Midwest, that are from places like rural Pennsylvania, like not necessarily like rural, but they're not necessarily like in the woods farmer people or anything like that. But there's some of that too, right? There are tons and tons and tons of available high quality women. Like I said in the post, a loyal 6 is worth more than 1,000 dime piece whores. And she's like online and she says she wants 2 giga Chad that's a millionaire with a huge dong. Like that is a rotten whore, and there's something wrong with her mind. A woman is not, of course she wants you to be handsome. Of course women like tall guys, but you have to pay attention. If you meet this girl and she's like, what do you think about that? Where she's exploring what's in your mind. She wants to know your trajectory, your vision. She wants to feel safe. She wants to feel stable. She wants a man that's going to be loyal to her, that isn't going to embarrass her or abuse her, that is going to take care of her, that is going to be a good dad. She wants somebody that's intelligent. She wants somebody that has vision and ambition. Women are good women are looking for a man with ambition. It doesn't have to be you should go to the gym and being taller is better and being handsome is better, obviously, always. But here's the deal: if you have ambition and you have vision and you have stuff, like, try this next time you go out and you get talking to a lady or whatever. Pitch her your vision for your future, your vision for your business, or your vision or whatever, and watch how she gets enamored with it. Watch how she's impressed with it. And she goes, oh, wow, that's a good idea. Well, even if it's something as mundane as, well, I'm doing this and then I want to go to school, I want to get this certification, I want to do this. And even if it's something completely mundane, it's not some grandiose pipe dream. She's going to like it. In fact, she's going to like the more grounded ones better than you say, okay, I want to, I have this and this. I'm working towards this. I want to open a landscaping business and I want to do this and this and that, blah, blah, blah. They like that. They like that. They want a man that has the potential for growth, right? Women are not looking at you as a dick with legs. They're looking at you as a long-term investment because they're genetically wired to do that. Period. Trust me. Listen to me. Don't listen to these scumbags in the manosphere. Listen, these guys are childless. They're unmarried, and they're just like weirdos. They go out and they just like trick whores into having sex with them. They're not men. They're parasites. They're predators. Big Dave and Mike, we are dads. We are guys. We are husbands in long-term relationships. We have a proven track record of success. We know what the fuck we're talking about. Period. Next question.
Yeah. All righty. So the next question is for me. It is, what happened to Imperium Cast? Oh, okay. Good question. So yeah, Imperium Cast, for guys who don't know, was a podcast with Joel Davis and myself. We did, I believe, 19 episodes. And it's been a while now. It's probably been about a year or so since we've done an episode. The Imperium Cast is now defunct. Joel and I basically got busy with other things. Another thing is that, like, with the Imperium Cast, it sort of started out as one thing, and then it sort of like slowly over time became another thing. And I enjoyed it. Like, I think it's a high quality podcast. It's interesting that somebody asked what happened to it in relation to this Culture Dads, because I got somebody that emailed recently as well, asking when the next episode's going to come out and everything. But like, I think it's a great high quality podcast, but it definitely changed over time. It started out, if you go on to imperiumpress.org/podcasts and you click on the Imperium Cast link, and then you click on the Spotify link at the next page, you'll see all the episodes. The first 2 episodes were just Joel and I. And the first one was where we basically laid out like our worldview. The second episode was where we talked, I think it was about throne and altar. And basically the idea that fundamentally all worldviews are religious worldviews. And then from there, I think the next episode was an interview. And then the next episode after that was another interview. And then the next episode after that was another interview. And for me, I mean, my vision, and I actually both of our visions, Joel's and my vision initially, was for it to be something different than what it became. It basically over time became an interview podcast. And that was pretty cool. We actually, we did 19 episodes. Every single one of them is interesting. There's a lot of very cool discussion that comes out of it. There's a lot of very deep sort of dives into the history of ideas and into literature and even into the scene, into the nationalist and dissident right scene itself. A lot of very deep dives on a lot of things, but I was just not that interested in doing an interview podcast. And again, Joel and I have sort of moved in some different directions, but beyond that, we just kind of got busy with other projects. I decided that, with getting Culture Dads up and running, it was going to be very hard to maintain 2 podcasts and a Substack and a publishing company and to say nothing of my family. So something had to give. And it was just basically, there was just too many things on the plate. So that's the reason why Imperium Cast is no more. I don't think we're going to be doing any more episodes on that, but I'm very proud of what we did. I look back on that and probably did somewhere in the area of about, I think all told 40 or 50 hours of material. And it's all really good stuff. So everyone should go onto the website and download all of it.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, there's a lot of great episodes over there. You guys should go definitely go check it out. So next question. Dear Mike, I'm writing with a question for the AMA. At least from the outside, it appeared that lockdowns and other aspects of the COVID regime were particularly bad in Australia. For example, as far as I know, leaving the country was forbidden for a period of time as a matter of principle. Perhaps you can relate some of your personal experiences in this regard and contrast it with those with Dave in the United States or with the family of yours in Canada. How long did you think the situation would go on in Australia? Were you always confident that you'd be able to sit it out in Australia? Were you always confident that you'd be able to, my contacts like shifted around my eye. As most of all over the world probably did, meaning sitting it out, not being confident. This request is based in the assumption that you've not talked about this at length before. If you have, I'd be interested to know where you did this. Answer: family suffered who radicalized you. Meme rant about starting IP. No idea the pushback. So yeah, sorry I butchered that. My freaking contacts screwed up.
No, it's all good. So yes, this is like the COVID thing was a real serious turning point for me. It was a turning point for me professionally. It was a turning point for me personally. It was a turning point for all of us because my family suffered tremendously from COVID. Now, as most of you guys know, I am a Canadian expat living in Australia. My immediate family, the missus, my children are obviously in Australia. My extended family is back in Canada. The basic sort of overview of what happened in those two places with over the course of 2020 and on into 2021 is that at first we were doing pretty well in Australia. In the state that I live in, there was not much in the way of lockdowns. We were pretty free. When the coof came in, life didn't really change all that much for us. That was not the case back in Canada. I'm trying not to reveal too much about like my personal family situation, but suffice it to say that my family in Canada suffered immensely over the lockdowns. I'll tell you this. I'll say this much. I have not known a single person who died of the coof, but I've known many people who died of the secondary effects of lockdowns. Many people. There is no comparison between those two things. So when you see that meme of the Chad guy and the shit lib who says, "Who radicalized you?" And then he walks over and he says, "You did." That meme is me. COVID tremendously hurt my family. The response to it did, not the thing, not the disease. The response hurt my family a lot. Now, back in Australia, we were doing pretty well for quite a while. And I forget timelines. It's hard for me to remember what month happened, what happened during what month or whatever. But towards the end of things, like in the US, for example, when lockdowns kind of really started to loosen up in the US and in Britain and other parts of the world, for some reason, Australia at that point was starting to really bring them in. And they had a significant effect on my immediate family for reasons that I don't really want to go into specifics over, but definitely there was some psychological difficulty with all of that. And it has really done a number on my life, basically. It has seriously affected my life. Meanwhile, all of this stuff is happening. Think of the timeline. Imperium launches. We put out our first book in September 2019. And by March of 2020, everybody's life is upside down. So that's 6 months into the company, a company's existence. And so while everyone else is sitting at home, watching Netflix, working from home, doesn't know what's going on, maybe receiving government handouts, their life is turned upside down. When are we going to be out of this? Like, what's happening? I don't know my ass from my elbow. I don't know whether I'm coming or going. Everything is upside down and everything is in flux. For me, what's happening is somehow I got myself into a position where I'm building a business. And at this point, it wasn't like my full-time job because that would time had to march on for that to happen. But I was working on it and I had something to live for. I had something to look forward to. I had something to work on, right? I had a project. I had a reason to get up in the morning. A lot of people didn't really have that reason. A lot of people did not really, again, they didn't know whether they were coming or going. And there was a massive psychological effect that is still being felt and will probably be felt for a generation with this lockdown shit. And so I had something to work on. I had something, a kind of like lodestar to like structure my life around. A lot of people did not have that. And especially later on when, I'm going to say, guessing sometime in like 2021 or so, when the lockdown started to really hit and really become a serious thing where I live. And it seemed like the rest of the world was opening up and we never would. This became a real problem for me and my family and my friends and everybody I knew. And meanwhile, all this stuff is, sorry, this is a long answer, but meanwhile, all this stuff is happening. Imperium is becoming successful. It's turning into my full-time job. At some point, it did become my full-time job. And meanwhile, I mean, all I'm trying to do, if you saw the original Imperium Twitter account, there was like not a lot of spicy takes on there. I mean, there was some spicy takes, within the realm of like classics and literature and everything, but there wasn't like, I wasn't like going around and yelling at people to name them and blah, 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 blah. Nothing like that, right? Very kosher sort of stuff. But yet I was still facing a lot of heat, a lot of usual suspects were coming out and trying to dox me, trying to make my life hard, trying to dob me into like the Twitter mods and things like that, trying to like catch me up and basically get my account banned, which they eventually did. And this just kept going and going and going and going. And you can imagine who I'm talking about and which peoples that we're talking about here. It kept going and going and going. And all I was trying to do, all that I had been doing from the very beginning, was trying to republish the fucking Iliad in a 19th century translation and to have it be understood in a way that is native to the worldview from which it's written. That's all I'm trying to do, and that's too much to ask. This is beyond the pale. You're just not allowed to do this anymore. And for someone who was, before that, I certainly had a political journey through libertarianism into neo-reaction and everything like that. I wasn't a normie per se, but I was much closer to that before having my eyes opened at what kind of pressure and what kind of pushback there is for just trying to do something small, for just being a classics publisher that just isn't woke and gay. Who radicalized me? They did. The people who said, no, you can't do that. So anyway, this is the sort of story of what happened over the course of like about a year and a half after starting Imperium. And that's it. It was quite bad in Australia when things were getting better elsewhere, and it seemed like that there was no light at the end of the tunnel, and it has caused problems for a lot of my friends and even my family. So I am a man on a mission now. If they wanted to stop me, if they wanted to, basically bully me into silence, they have done just the opposite. So that was the effect, basically, of COVID on me.
Yeah, and I would like to point out that, dude, I have like all Imperium Press's books. There's very little here that is like legitimately, overtly, explicitly spicy. And there's a couple that are a little spicy, but it's intellectual stuff. The fact that they went after Mike like that was like, you could tell that scares them far more than what we would consider to be explicitly edgy stuff. There's explicitly edgy accounts on Twitter that have, tens of thousands, many thousands of followers and say outwardly explicit things. Mike gets on there and wants to do a modern translation of the Iliad, and that scares the shit out of them, right? So just keep in mind, like, the stuff that is actually intellectually gets under their roots and actually explains why they are wrong in reasonable intellectual ways, coming from the voices of great men in history, that scares them more than this other stuff. And I'm not saying like that other stuff can't be useful. I'm not knocking anybody, but what I'm saying is the intellectual shit and the art shit are like, they fear it. It's like sun on a vampire. You know what I mean?
Yeah. The thing that one of the things that they want the least, one of the things that they are most afraid of is that what they call the alt-right, or, even spicier words than that, what they call the thing they're worried about the most is that what they call the alt-right will come into conjunction with all the greatest minds that have ever lived. But this is the thing, as the successor to that movement, our worldview is the worldview of all of the great men in history, all of the most impressive minds that have ever lived. They agree with us on every fundamental point, and they disagree with them on every fundamental point. So pointing that out is very, very problematic. And, I'm not trying to dunk on anybody who has, successfully got back on Twitter. I'm very, very happy to see so many of our guys, even the spicy ones, getting back on there. But who hasn't got back on there is Imperium Press. So maybe that tells you something.
Yeah. And I would say that, like, I don't even know if I don't really consider myself like a radical or anything. Like I don't even know if I'm, we use right wing, but as we've talked about before, that's left right wing is sort of like very low resolution. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And our arguments for these things, I see myself as just like a regular guy. Like if I went back 30 years, nobody would even bat an eye at me. You know what I mean? I'm just a regular dude. I'm just a dad. I'm a religious guy. I think that, the ordering forces of the universe are good. I think that law and order is good. I think that having family, I'm a natalist. I think those things are good. I think that loving who you are and where you come from is good. And like regionalism is beautiful. And like, these are just things I love. I think that beauty and order and these things are just good. I've never done anything like outside of a few like bar tussles or whatever. I've never been like done anything really overtly violent. I've never, I spent a night in a drunk tank one time because I, got into a drunk bar fight and I got a couple speeding tickets. Outside of that, I've never been charged. I don't do illegal things. I am one of the most, if you guys meet me, and some of you will, and some of you have, I am such a regular dude. It's, I like cool guitar music. I like what I like, and I dislike weird, gross stuff. And that's it. But according to them,
that's a bridge too far.
That's a bridge too far. Yeah, I'm a sensible centrist. I am. I really am.
You know what? There's something to that meme. I know a lot of our guys don't like it, but the fact is that we occupy the null hypothesis. Historically, we are the default position. It is them that needs to justify themselves to us. At least, intellectually they do. In terms of power, it's the other way around. But by all accounts, by all reasonable accounts, it is us that has the default position. So this is, they fear that. They're absolutely terrified of a normal person like me, or at least who I was before they pissed me off. Like Dave, like any of our guys, like any of the people in our sphere that have a platform or anything like that, we are normal, well-adjusted people who, as like Dave says, we just want to raise our families. We believe that that our deities are good, and we believe that gross shit needs to be stamped down, and that's it. Like it should not be a controversial position, but unfortunately, that is it's moving us towards some historical epochs that are unnameable. So yeah,
And one
we're
thing,
in it.
I'm sorry, go
Go
ahead,
ahead.
Mike.
No, that's okay.
I was going to say one thing that I like to do when I talk to one of these kooky libtoads is I ask them where they got radicalized. I'm like, how did you get radicalized? And they'll be, well, I'm like, now whenever they said like that, I don't know. That's kind of an extreme position. I'm just kind of like a regular traditional guy. You know, I don't get into that crazy stuff. They're like, it completely fries them because they come to the table with this presupposition that they are the standard, and society agrees with them and history agrees with them, and they're on the right side of history and what they're talking about. So when they get presented with this idea that they are indeed the radical and they are indeed like crazy people, they don't know how to take it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's one thing I like to do. Yeah.
All righty.
Let's move on. Anonymous says, what craft skill would you advise to young men to learn today?
Okay. This is, I don't know if I have like a really satisfyingly deep take on this, because it's a pretty pragmatic question. I would say what craft or skill you should get would be something that is, first of all, useful. Second of all, obsolescence proof. You know, it's something that shouldn't be made obsolete in the next 10 years or whatever. And it should be ideally, although not, you know, necessarily, it should be accredited, something that you can get a license for. Although that comes with its own risks. But something like becoming a plumber or maybe like an electrician or like an HVAC technician.
Skilled labor.
Yeah, exactly. Skilled labor. Something that is that people have needed forever and they're going to need forever. And that doesn't require that you get, you know, something that you can basically go to like trade college for or whatever and not have to go into the university system and get paused and gay and everything. You become a carpenter or a boiler maker or a concreter or something like that. First of all, you're going to work with other people who are normal and not retarded. Number two, you are going to start making money right away. Or if not right away, maybe within a year or two, something like that. You won't need to go through and get your master's degree in 7 years or whatever it takes now to get that. You're gonna get a return on investment pretty damn quick, right? And of course, if you become a doctor or an engineer or a physicist or something like that, and you get paid well, or a lawyer or whatever, over a lifetime, you are going to recoup that and then some, and it's going to be worth the money and everything like that. But unless you're really interested in those fields, it's like those are high stress fields, right? Like people end up like it's the kind of shit that like really hurts your family to work in like a high powered industry. Like if you're a lawyer or something like that, like that's, if you want to, if you're a normal person, like the 24-year-old guy that asked the question earlier, wants a wife and a family. I mean, being a lawyer is going to be like, okay, yeah, like, you know, that's attractive to women because it's like a high paid job or whatever it is. But what happens like 10, 20 years down the line when like your work is just like absolutely crushing you and it's making your family miserable and everything? Being an electrician is going to be a lot more family friendly than that kind of thing. And it's the kind of thing where, you know, you can travel with it if you want to, and you're going to start making money right away. You're going to start like earning right away. And if you can take that money and do something useful with it, like, you know, put a down payment on a house or something, you know, like that kind of shit. Maybe at the end of the day, you'll find that like more of your life is manageable than if you became an engineer and were just like miserable for 10 or 15 years until you started to make money. That would be my advice. Get a skilled trade, basically.
Yeah. It's also going to be the last jobs to be replaced by AI.
Yeah, that's true.
We're a long way off before machines can do what electricians do. Things that require both labor and intelligence. Electricians, HVAC, plumbers, the list goes on. Also unions are great. Like don't listen, dude. Go be an apprentice at a union. Unions pay very well. They take care of people. They strong arm corporations and governments for the workers. So you could say that it's commie shit or whatever, commie shit, not commie shit. It puts a lot of money in your pocket and takes care of your family. At the end of the day,
even when I was a libertarian, I still thought unions were cool. Like anybody who thinks unions are stupid is just like got his head so far up his ass. Obviously, the unions that exist are in many ways paused and they kind of don't even like serve that function anymore. But as a thing, like organized labor is absolutely it's good. I mean, it's necessary to a functioning society.
Yeah, unions are literally just like an evolution of guilds, and guilds throughout history have been awesome and have done awesome things. And without guilds, we wouldn't have beautiful cathedrals and beautiful giant architecture. Like, dude, the unions are great. If you're a young man, do not listen to the libertarian goofballs on the internet. Go be an apprentice. Also, unions are full of cool bros, and there's a lot of brotherhood and fraternity among them. They look out for each other. They have love for one another. It's almost like a Mannerbund kind of thing. But skilled labor is the way to go right now. Like they say, go be an engineer, go be a coder, go be a programmer. Those are about to get replaced. Everything that has to do with computers is about to be replaced. So in like 5-10 years. So skilled labor is the way to go. Now, on a personal level, I didn't know if this was a professional question or a personal question. On a personal level, become a good cook. Be a good cook. There's no excuse not to be a good cook. It's embarrassing if you're a grown man and somebody comes to your house and you can't make something good. Learn how to be a good cook. Another thing, learn how to play an instrument, become musical. This idea that music is only for like a small portion of people is absolutely, completely made up nonsense. For all of history, most people could play a little something, right? If my old time Italian-American family, everybody could sing a little bit, everybody could dance a little bit, everybody could play a little bit on guitar, accordion, whatever. Learn how to play an instrument, devote some time to that instead of jerking off on the internet or whatever you're doing. You can sing. I don't care who you are. You can at least sing a little bit. If you have vocal cords and you can do inflections, do some do, re, mi type of shit, and you can learn how to sing. Get involved with poetry. Learn how to recite some poetry. Have some like skills. Grow plants. Learn how to take care of plants. Do plants in your house, flowers. It's not gay. It's beautiful. Beauty is a masculine thing. Having plants and flowers in your house and growing a garden is a wonderful thing. Caloric independence. Dude, you will save so much money growing that garden. And once it's all in the ground, it's not a whole lot of work. It's not that hard to take care of. Herbs. You can have fresh herbs in your kitchen. There's no reason not to. They grow by themselves on the windowsill and they elevate your cooking to the next level. Fresh herbs are the way to go. Dude, so many of these things don't just be like, have all this like knowledge in your head from books that you've read. You should have usable, practical skills in regards to creating beauty, creating goodness, creating high quality things. Do it. Dude, there's no reason you can't sing and dance and cook. That's just, you don't have that. And it's not your fault. It's what you grew up in, but you have to change that now. If you don't, you're just a modernist, right? You're just a wage slaver with no flavor and no soul to you. Do it. I'm telling you, do it. It's mandatory. Big Dave's rules. So next up,
for sure.
Oh, this one's for me. Question for Dave. What is your method for work-life balance? It's not very good. I'll be honest. It's not very good. Work-life balance is hard. Especially if you're like me and you're a complete psychopath and you get obsessed with your work and you spend ridiculous amounts of time staying up late, getting up early, and sitting in front of your computer and doing this and writing notes and having entire stacks of books and notes. And I am an obsessive workaholic that will sit and crank out. I'm a crazy person. It's not good. Don't be like me. Have a good work-life balance. Know when to put it down and walk away and everything. Right? It's good to get obsessed with projects. There's a light at the end of but after that, after it's over, after you're possessed, after you've gotten it out of your body, go be normal, right? But don't let it drop. Another thing that I do is I'll do a certain type of project and I'll obsess with it for weeks and weeks and weeks and be a crazy person. And then I'll put it down for a long ass time and go do something else. And then I come back and I'm rusty. Don't do that. Do, like, if you're a writer, write, finish your project, put it down for a week or so, come back and do it. Don't ever give up your momentum. Next question. What do your children think of your content? My children are all too young. They know that daddy makes books and they like to look at daddy's books, but only my oldest, who is 8, is now starting to get pretty good at reading. But everything that I create is too far above his reading level. So they just think that daddy makes books and they like that and they want to do it with me. Sometimes I let them come up my studio and sit on my lap as we do certain things, but as a whole, they're all kind of too young to understand what daddy does outside of daddy makes books with cool pictures on them. So, does your wife support what you do? What is the dynamic like? My wife is awesome and supports all of my crazy endeavors, even the ones that fail. And she believes in me because she is loyal to me. And, she believes in my visions, and I think that she picked me for that reason. And sometimes my wife, and I'm sure other guys that do some sort of work that I do, have wives that are like, they probably get kind of tired of because I do. I sit my poor wife down, and I just like ramble on for forever and ever and ever, pitching my ideas and all my craziness to her, and make her be my guinea pig for everything all the time. And I can see she visibly gets tired of it. But if you switch me out with some normie guy and she had to be married by some normie guy, she would be bored as fuck. She would be like, probing him, like, hey, so what do you think about this? What's your ideas about that? What are we gonna do? She would be fucking absolutely bored to tears with this poor bastard, right? She would be like trying to squeeze blood out of a turnip. So it's like it drives her nuts sometimes. It wears her out sometimes. And but she's on board. She loves it. And also she gets, it's also a status thing. Women love status. We get to go to events where people buy my books and love my shows, and they come up and they shake my hand, they take pictures with me, and that's fucking cool to be married to a guy like that, right? Even though we're not over the top wealthy, we're pretty, we live by very meager, strict means. But there's pretty cool, and I'm not saying I'm not trying to flex or get a big dick about it. Sometimes it's a little weird on my behalf because I don't look in the mirror and see some fucking big hot shot. I look in the mirror and I see Dave. I see white trash goofball from Pennsylvania in the mirror. I see Dave. I don't see what is going on. So sometimes, and I'm going to say this to you guys that do meet me at events and want to come shake my hand and get pictures and ask questions. If I ever act weird or awkward or whatever, it's not you. It's because I still have trouble digesting this, right? It's weird that I go from being in my house and among my regular family to going somewhere where I'm kind of a celebrity, right? That I'm not used to that. That is not something that is easy to get used to. So if I ever react awkwardly, I'm like hanging out with my people. I appreciate you and I love you and I am grateful for you and your support of me and my work and my publishing and my shows and everything. But it's just a thing I got to get used to. So I'm sorry, I went on a tangent there.
No, that's good. I just want to underline there what you were saying about how this requires what we do as publishers and even as like content creators in the scene. There's a lot of guys who don't put out books, but like do put out videos and podcasts like we do and everything. And this takes a lot of work, and there is not. It's not the millions and millions of dollars that you think it is rolling into our pockets, not even remotely.
There ain't no money in this.
No, there's not. I was making more money just doing a normie job where I had only spent like a year in school basically to learn my craft. That was much more lucrative than what I'm doing right now. I love what I'm doing. But it takes a lot of work. It takes a lot of toll on my family, just like I know it does for you too, Dave.
It does.
There is so much like that goes into what we do, and there's a lot that people don't see. So it frustrates me a little bit sometimes when like I get messages from people asking why, like why we don't do more and everything like that. It's like we're giving all that we can kind of thing, right? And Dave and I are only two guys. Imperium, there's a few people involved. It's not a massive organization yet. Hopefully we'll get there. We plan to get there. But we appreciate the support of like all of the people who buy our books. We appreciate all of the support of guys who sign up to the Gumroad and the Substack. It makes such a huge difference to what we do. But there is a lot of sacrifice involved. I would not recommend this to anybody that is anything less than a complete fanatic about what our worldview is all about the folkish worldview, about the dissident right. I would not recommend it to anybody who isn't 110% committed to it, because you're going to end up giving a lot, and you're going to end up sacrificing a lot personally to do it. So yeah, it's very rewarding, and we get to do what we're doing right now, and it's amazing to feel the community. I had a serious like personal tragedy a couple of years ago, even when Imperium was a lot smaller, and people reached out. There was a definite sense of community, and that it's worth a lot. So yeah. It's hard to keep that work-life balance. That's for sure.
Yeah. I get questions all the time. Hey, I want to start doing fiction publishing, blah, 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 blah. And you say, get used to 2 years with you working endlessly and you not just not making money, but losing money. This is a business thing, right? They say that businesses take 2 years until they become profitable. It's just the way that it is. And on top of everything, because of what I've done in the past, what I've said publicly, what I standing up for the things that I've stood up for, I am not hireable for any sort of job outside of like very basic entry level shit, right? I could go work in a kitchen. I could go work in a warehouse or whatever. I have some work injuries that also limit me. So I'm severely limited to what I can go do in the workforce. I am like doomed to doing this. I don't want to say doomed because that's a hard word, but this is my path, and I would not suggest it to you guys. If you love books, maybe do a self-published thing, buy them, whatever. You have with this, what I'm doing, you have to be obsessed with art. You have to sacrifice you and your future upon the altar of the thing that you love. And the thing that I love is pulp fiction, is music, is art, is poetry, is these things. Is heathenry, is my faith. I have sacrificed myself upon this altar, and it's not lucrative. It is very, very. So let me put this in perspective. I've been podcasting since 2009. Since 2009, however many years that is. It is only now that I figured out and found my niche and found my path and figured out how to make as much money as I did working in a kitchen. Now, a lot of those years I spent goofing off and not doing the right thing and not making the right decisions. And I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't have any mentors. And pretty much every other content creator mentor in that time period that I reached out to considered me competition and started beef with me. And it was a whole lot of bullshit, right? And now I'm surrounded by people like Mike, like my buddy Tristan that I did the blog with, like the guys, I'm not really working with them so much anymore, but I was working with the guys in Neurona Society and just a lot of great people. I am surrounded by excellent, awesome people that don't, it's not we are a legion. We are a nation now, and we work together, and they help me, and I'm just endlessly supportive and grateful. These guys that are my friends and also my mentors that have helped me. I wouldn't have been able to do this without them. So I've now finally found my spot, and I'm ready to go to the moon.
For sure, bro. Yeah, no, we're getting there. It's been amazing to see how the Culture Dads podcast has grown, how Imperium has grown, how Biz Archives has grown. So, yeah, we very much appreciate. We were talking before about how about loyalty and about guys who like have a meteoric rise and fall in their like content creation. We are lucky to have a modest but a absolutely fanatical audience who will support us through thick and thin, and that is worth more than 150,000 YouTube subs of people who don't give a fuck about you. That is worth a lot more. So, yeah, we can only hope that we as publishers will be able to deliver stuff that you guys want and like and deserve, and that's our mission basically.
Yeah, when I'm working on books, when I'm working on music, when I'm working on anything, I have you guys in mind. Like this whole everything that I do is like, I hope the guys like this. Literally, that's my entire existence outside of like serving my family and my faith community and everything. And even in the faith community, it's I want to do things that make you guys happy, that bring you guys joy, that help you think, that gets in your imagination, that entertains you. Big Dave works for you guys. Period. Now, obviously, I'm my own guy, and I do things the way that I want to do. But it's also the whole thing in my mind is I am projecting outward to like for you guys. Big Dave works for you, period. At the end of the day, it's always going to be that way. So we got one more question, and then we're going to wrap it up, man. This has been a doozy. Mike's probably exhausted.
We did have a last minute question that came in since I sent you the list of questions. So we got two more, but let's get at it. All right. So the penultimate question here, again from our bro. There's three questions. Oh gosh, they keep pouring in. All right. So we had an anonymous patron that said that asked if you could design a school curriculum for a focused community, what does that look like? It's a big question. I can only really touch on it in general because, of course, I talked a little bit about the syllabus earlier. About this is an example of like one Imperium project, like long-term project that we're working on. We looked into designing a school curriculum or a homeschool curriculum. It's a massive project. We've had people reach out to us and say, would you like to work on this with us? We certainly would. But again, we have to prioritize putting out books first and work on that other stuff when we can. Now, as far as designing a school curriculum for a folkish community, I think what that looks like is something like it would probably begin with the trivium. Now, the trivium is the first three of the 7 liberal arts of antiquity, liberal arts being not what it sounds like today, but the trivium is rhetoric. The trivium is rhetoric, grammar, and I can't believe I'm blanking on this. There is a third one. Grammar and logic. I'm sorry. Rhetoric, grammar, and logic. So this is basically it. None of these are technical disciplines. Perhaps logic is, in a sense, a hard discipline, but it's the foundation for everything else. With grammar, you learn what words mean. You learn how to carve reality at the joints. You learn the power of framing concepts in the right way. It's what Confucius called. It is late here. Oh my God, I'm completely blanking on words, which is hilarious because, basically, if if your concepts don't carve reality at the joints, if words don't attach themselves to real things in the world, then you are just never going to be able to think straight. And grammar is more than just learning where to put a comma in a sentence, or that kind of thing, or what a verb is. Grammar is learning how to organize your thoughts in a way that is remotely sensible. Logic, of course, is an extension of grammar, in that logic is basically the grammar of reality. Logic enables you to effectively to understand what you're saying. Logic basically is sort of like the precondition of all mathematical thinking. It's allows you to be consistent in what you're saying. And rhetoric, of course, is the thing that I'm failing at right now because I'm so tired. It allows you to organize your thoughts in a way that is that makes them very easily understood, and that are compelling to people. So these are the core things that you need to understand before you learn anything, before you learn about literature, before you learn about science, before you learn about history, before you learn about any other thing. You need to learn these three core things. So that would be sort of the core of a school curriculum, a focused school curriculum. Beyond that, I would say that organizing a school curriculum, beyond what's like the normal subjects of like math and history and science and things, it has to be based on the classics. When you quote Shakespeare, people take you seriously, right? When you quote something like the King James Bible, which might seem a little bit strange for people who are folkish, if by that we mean pagan, but the King James Bible is an important part of our linguistic history. When you quote Homer or Virgil or the Eddas or more recent authors that are also weighty, people will take you seriously, because our culture is sort of built around that, around these authors. They are the kind of foundation, and the scaffolding of our culture is kind of built around them. So you need to understand that. Now, beyond any of that stuff, which is kind of more theoretical in nature, I would say a school curriculum for a focused community has to be practical. It has to teach you, how to teach yourself things. It has to teach you self-study and the ability to acquire knowledge all on your own. It has to imbue you with a love of learning so that you would care to continue to learn things after you're finished school. There has to be tons and tons of socialization involved in a school curriculum for a focused community. Being liked is at least as important to succeeding in your career as being skilled. You have to learn a trade. You have to learn a skill. We've touched on this. There's a lot of things that you could learn in order to better yourself and make yourself more financially useful, more economically viable to somebody. But if you're just an autistic retard that can't talk to people and it creeps people out, it doesn't fucking matter unless you're a super genius and you know something that nobody else in the entire world knows. If you're just a creeper that people feel uncomfortable around, it doesn't matter. None of that matters, right? So you have to learn social skills. Life is a popularity contest. A lot of people sort of like, they go through high school and they think that like, I'm a nerd right now, but I'll show them when I go to university and I learn, whatever, and I become, Sheldon from Big Bang Theory, and I'm a physicist. Everyone will take me seriously. Then I'll be well liked, and I'll have a great career track and lots of money and lots of bitches and hoes and money and everything. No, life is a popularity contest. It's the extension of high school. If you're an awkward, socially retarded creeper in high school, that's exactly what you're going to be like when you get out into the workforce.
It'll be worse.
And your life is not going to get any fucking better. So you need to learn how to socialize. This is an important part of school curriculum, I think. And it's something that school doesn't actually teach you. They just kind of leave you to the dogs, right? They just kind of like, it's almost like getting thrown into a Darwinian nightmare. They don't actually teach you how to socialize. A school curriculum for a focused community involves lots of shit outdoors, lots of going outside, lots of being in the place that you live. This is so important, especially if we're talking about a folkish school curriculum. It's about teaching you to love the place that you're from. When I grew up in Ontario, some of my best memories at school were going out to native reserves and doing things like, tapping the trees and getting maple syrup from them. It's a very Canadian picture. And just the smell of the forest and the feel and the kind of like crunch, of the underfoot feeling of the earth beneath your feet in this land that's been around forever. And going through all the shit that the natives did for tens of thousands, or at least, many, many thousands of years. That was as informative to me as a folkish person now as anything else. So get outdoors, go on field trips, go see things, do practical stuff, learn the trivium. Don't try and talk about it at 1:30 a.m. when you're tired as fuck. That would be a good basis for a folkish school curriculum.
Okay, good answer. Is this last one? You have another one?
Yes, I do have. I have two more.
All right.
Okay, this one's from Frostkaz. I have another question, this time on the effect of language on the brain. If I were to write, you'll like this. If I were to write a Lovecraftian story chosen for our general familiarity with him and his heavy use of Greek and Latin derived words, if I were to write a Lovecraftian story using only pure English, sometimes called Anglish, how differently would that hit? Rather than better or worse, how does this affect the mind that absorbs it?
Yeah. So here's the thing with Latinate words. Latinate words have a mystique to them. A lot of times, like the effects of words in stories, I don't know what the technical word is for it, but like the sonic quality, how they sound, and how they sound really affects the vibe of the story itself, right? Like if you say something like something that is cyclopean, right? Something that's cyclopean or whatever. Like Latinate words have a mystique and an allure, and they're kind of mysterious, and they have a weirdness to them because they feel a little bit, even to us today, that have lots of Latinate words in our modern English, still sound a little bit cosmic, right? They sound a little bit oriental. They sound a little bit foreign or something. They have a mysterious, whereas very Germanic Anglish words are very punchy and hard hitting and are like they're like, for example, one of the words that we use in everyday language, you don't consider umbrella. Umbrella is a Latinate Italian word. Yeah. The English version of this is rain shade, right?
Yeah.
Which one sound like you say, allow me to produce my umbrella. Like that has a little bit of a flavor to it than let me grab my rain shade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like a different vibe. It sonically sounds different, and it creates a different mood and atmosphere. So yes, Lovecraft stories would most certainly hit different. I don't know, better or worse. Maybe better, but maybe worse if they used purely Germanic English vocabulary and vernacular.
Yeah, most definitely. I don't know if it would have the same effect that it would have a different effect, but I don't know if it would work actually if you took out a lot of the Latinate language. Because Latin, I mean, just on a technical level, you could only do it so far because English as a language is basically like, think of it as a tree which has Latinate branches but a Germanic trunk. You cannot get away from simple words like I and be and am and not and things like that are just, they're just Germanic. It's just like the absolute bare bones of the language is Germanic, and you can't get away from that. But if you were to completely pare back all of the Latin, I mean, what the Latinate language, the reason why it sounds like it sounds to us is because it came in after the Norman invasion, and French was for many, many, many centuries the language of the English court. Not English, it was French that was spoken in the English court. So because high culture, or let's just say upper class culture, always filters down into lower class culture over time, these words eventually became used and became part of the general English vernacular. So Latin sounds to us elevated. It sounds high class. It sounds technical. It sounds learned. It sounds erudite. Germanic, on the other hand, rather than saying that it sounds low and whatever, you know what it sounds like? It sounds reliable. It sounds earthy. It sounds trustworthy.
It sounds old.
Yes, it does. It sounds like it's getting to the fucking point, right? And people trust that. It's the kind of language where if you really want someone to, if you want to dazzle someone or impress them or make them believe that you know something, you're going to use Latinate language. If you just want to get your point across and you want someone to believe you, if you want someone to trust you, you use more simplistic Germanic words. And yeah, it's they're very, very different in their effects. So I don't know if it would really work with Lovecraft, to be honest.
And I would also like to point out he does use a lot of very Anglish words as well. He does both. And if you notice, he does at different times. I don't know if he consciously did this. This is how brilliant Lovecraft was. I don't know if he consciously did this or if this was just an unconscious knowing. Both would be impressive, right? I actually think that if he didn't even think about it, it would be even more brilliant. But like, for example, when he describes something that's really like gross, like he will say something like loathsome unnamabilities rife with fetid ichor, or like something like that, like loathsome or like fetid ichor. Like these words are madness, abnormality, like these are Germanic words, whereas then he uses things like antiquarian and would like hideous and blasphemous be Latinate? Probably. I don't know.
I think some of those are I think blasphemous is actually Greek, but it's the same thing, same idea, basically.
Yeah.
The Greek and Latinate words sound different. The Germanic is the trunk of the language, and you really can't get away from it. But it's got a kind of the Germanic. This is why English is a thing. It's not just a sort of like ethnic chauvinism of trying to be English. There's a kind of profundity or depth to the English, to speaking that way. It sounds old. It sounds venerable. And it sounds from here. So, yeah. I think Lovecraft himself was a very aristocratic type person, and that lent itself to him using the kind of language he did. But at the same time, based on what he was writing about, he had to actually use the Germanic language for its punchiness as well.
Mm.
All right. So last question here. We got this from an anonymous patron just a little bit before we started streaming. Here we go. This is not a question, but a political statement regarding creating AI content. Make elves 6'2" plus Germanic gods again. Enough with the silly, even if more accurate, 5-foot humans with pointy ears that live longer. And curb stomp any D&D balance and cliches. An ethereal, beautiful, strong, and immortal standard for us. like the good Professor Tolkien did. And yes, it would have something for the simps as well. A she-elf would be cutting off heads just as easily as a male, for they are not humans, but gods. Okay, maybe this is a bit silly. Maybe I got spoiled on Tolkien, and just maybe I want more of it. I have to admit, I'm rather excited about the AI possibilities for us, and I think we'll knock it out of the stratosphere. Much love to what you guys do. Dark days are dark, and I fear for much worse. Keeping our traditions of folktales and myths alive is essential to what we are.
I like that guy.
Yeah. No, it's I think that's a fitting close. Actually, it's not a question, but I do think that we're going to have to wield AI as a tool. And we talked about this on the episode where the most recent episode where we talked about modernism and modern aesthetics. Our distant ancestors were not afraid of technology. They were not afraid of cutting edge tools. And in some cases, they were at the forefront of pushing technology forward. Our Indo-European ancestors, there's a very important Roman god named Janus, who is the two-faced god, the god that is invoked at the beginning of all prayers. And he looks backwards and forwards simultaneously. And I think that this is probably one of the most archaic gods that we have, and I believe that his Germanic cognate is Heimdall. I believe that this is one of the most archaic gods in the Indo-European pantheon because of this, because of his liminality, because he exists on the threshold. Janus was the god of doorways. We are at a threshold. We are at a doorway to a new era. And AI is a big part of that. And it's up to us to take hold of it and to use it. There's no other choice. And I think we're going to do that. And as this guy says, I think we're going to knock it out of the park. I think that the radical right, if it was to get serious, if it was to do serious institution building, if it was to professionalize, and if it was to wield AI as a tool, that would be absolutely fucking unstoppable. And that's what we need to do. So, yeah, I think that that would be what I would say in response to that.
Yeah. And then closing out, our boy Solar Temple throws us another $10. Very, very generous. Thank you so much, Mr. Solar Temple. He says, great stream, guys. You're setting a solid example. Full support. Hail the dad. Hail to you too, Solar Temple, and hail to each and every one of you culture dads that tuned in with us for this huge marathon of Q&A. We're going to shut it down because Mike is exhausted. It's like 2-3 a.m. where he's at, so he's ready for bed. So we're going to shut it down. But thank you again. Hails and blessings to each and every one of you guys, each and every one of your wonderful, beautiful families. If you liked what you heard here, guys, go sign up, man. We got Culture Dads every week over at imperiumpress.org/podcast. Go follow the links and sign up for the Gumroad, and you get Culture Dads, you get hardback books, all kinds of tiers and all kinds of cool stuff over there. Go check it out. You're going to love it. If you want to check out what I'm doing, go over to thebizarchives.com and buy some books. Got lots of great books. And also, we just dropped our first audiobook over on Amazon. So go over to Audible and go check out the Bizarchives, and you can get the no longer in print. Bizarchives 1 is no longer in print. So you can go over. Yep. It is only available in audiobook, and go over in there and get yourself a copy of that. It's listened to on your car rides or wherever you're going. So lots of great stuff. We got more audiobooks have been getting requested. I hear it, guys. I hear it. You guys want the audiobooks? We're going to deliver. We're going to do more. It just takes a long time. It's a big thing, and they're expensive. It's just like a big thing. So little by little, we're going to start spitting out audiobooks for you guys, and it's going to be good stuff. So you guys stay tuned for that. Stay tuned for Bizarchives 5, The King in Yellow, Masters of Horror Volume 3, and The Weird Works of Dave Martell. I'm putting out a compilation of all my poetry and published works. So hopefully you guys like that. There's going to be a story in there that has not been published yet called Human Candles. So I think you guys are going to like that. It's a really spooky, weird kind of horror story. So that's going to be it, folks. thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll check you guys next time on Culture Dad's Age of Sword and Cassette.